Good morning. Welcome to Tuesday. Let's make tracks on the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and I do this together with Bernice Abubedu Lanza. Now, here's what you can expect. The usual, at least for the start of the show. The news is up next. And right after that, Dr. Peter Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies, joins us, of course, for the news review. And then we get into our big stories. We'll be going back to that topical issue. We continue our conversation on the back and forth between former Environment Minister Professor Frimpong Boateng and government. Now, we're going to engage former Lands and Natural Resources Minister Inusa Fuseni and someone who's constantly working to end Galamsey in the Nzema enclave. Elizabeth Va is Executive Director, Environmental Advocacy Group. Both of them join us as we get back into that saga. But today we mark World Malaria Day, and we'll be looking at findings from the 2022 Ghana Demographic and Health Survey and what it reveals. It indicates that the prevalence of malaria in children aged 6 to 9 months is 8.6% according to microscopy results. The malaria prevalence in rural areas, that is 12.8%, is about 3 times that of urban areas, which stands at 4.3%. Again, the Greater Accra region, with a figure of 2%, has the lowest prevalence, followed by the Western North with 4.4% and the Volta region with 6.4%. Well, today we get into those details as we host our guests on that matter. Later on the show as well, we offer you the opportunity of getting interactive with us via the phone lines, via social media. So just stay with us on the AM show and let's do this for God and country. Up next, the news. Well, let's start with our first story in the news. And the minority in Parliament is asking for a parliamentary probe into the alleged involvement of top government officials in illegal mining following a report by former Environment Minister Professor Frimpong Boateng. Now, Professor Boateng, who was also chairman of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, had named many top government officials and affiliates in a report to President Akufo-Addo. One of the people he accuses is the president's cousin, Gabi Asare-Otrodako, who he alleges used his influence to intervene on behalf of mining companies CNG Alaska and Heritage Imperial Mining Company Limited. But Mr. Otrodako has denied these allegations. Dr. Kasialato Fortson is minority leader.
That is the position of the minority, but we will go beyond raising what is happening on the floor of Parliament. Our position is that the revelations coming out calls for a national probe. Obviously, Parliament will take the lead, and it is our position to call for a probe into this matter, because what we are hearing, the argument, the counter-argument, the accusations, the counter-accusations, and what are coming out clearly point to a fact that President's attempt to stop illegal mining was not genuine. And the fact that obviously it looks as if it was a grand scheme to share the natural resources of our country. And so it should be important to us as Parliament to look into the matter. The NDC in the coming days will start a series of actions on this matter. And so you will hear from us in the coming days.
And you say that you trigger this exactly what time?
I can't discuss the timing that we are going to trigger that with you, but I can assure you that the minority will take action on this matter.
Dr. Fortson, it's an open secret, isn't it? When the president himself...
But I don't have to discuss my strategy with you, do I?
Yeah, but
Now, in our next story, government says it will boost creative writing among the youth to stimulate socio-economic transformation through the construction of a domestic book industry. Speaking at the official launch of the Accra World Book Capital 2023, President Akufo-Addo said reading would equip the youth with the knowledge and skills needed to succeed in today's rapidly changing job market.
It seeks to provide institutional support for lifelong learning, as well as reinforce school and community infrastructure. Additionally, government with support from the private sector will also construct a reading and creative writing facility to boost the culture of reading and creative writing to stimulate socioeconomic transformation. The construction of the facility in Accra will promote further the acquisition of 21st century skills to address rising unemployment in vulnerable communities, reinvigorate businesses in the domestic book industry, as well as reimagine the concept of libraries towards instilling the culture of reading amongst the youth of our country. The Accra World Book Capital 2023 has come to reignite the spirit of reading and its inherent transformative power to impact positively the Ghanaian society towards the national goal of Ghana becoming a learning nation.
Let's talk power now. And the Northern Electricity Distribution Company, NEDCO, has disconnected power supply to the Tain District Hospital for failure to settle its debts. Techiman Area Manager for NEDCO, John Tahiri, says the facility has for the past 2 years accumulated a debt of over 5 million Ghana cedis. And Asabit has more in this report.
Well, the Northern Electricity Department is being owed to a tune of over 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. The Techiman area, as I speak, have its customers owing more than 100 million Ghana cedis. Today we are here at the Tain District Hospital, where we understand the facility is owing over 5 million Ghana cedis. Officers of the Northern Electricity Department are here to engage them, as well as disconnect the facility and then ensure that they will only connect them after making full payment of this amount. What we are also learning is that the last time the facility paid a dime of its electricity bill is somewhere in 2021. So within a period of over 2 years, they've accumulated this amount. We've been speaking with the General Manager of NEDCO or VRA in Techiman, Mr. John Tahiri.
This exercise has been necessitated by the level of indebtedness customers, the people who use our power owe us. To start from the base for you to appreciate exactly what the issues are, NEDCO is owed over 1.2 billion cedis. In Techiman area, our consumers owe us 109 million. If you come to this particular facility, the debt owed us in less than 2 years is 4.2 plus. You realize that if nothing is done about this exercise, it's going to be business as usual. And if in less than 2 years this facility can raise a debt of more than 2 million, then we need to be worried.
NEDCO has, since the start of these operations on Tuesday, April 18, disconnected major facilities across its operational areas, and this includes the Nkranza St. Teresa's Hospital.
We have disconnected St. Teresa Hospital in Nkranza. We have also disconnected Nkranza Health Center. Yes, there are 2 hospitals. Then we have disconnected the Bunu East School Room. It's in Kintampo. It is also disconnected. We have disconnected Bedu Hospital on Tuesday. And today we have come to disconnect. In fact, we have finished disconnecting Nsoko Hospital.
The message from the VRA or NEDCO to its customers who are currently owing is that they should hasten to visit any of their offices across board to make full payment or some payments before the team gets to their facilities as part of its bigger plan to recoup all the amounts that have been owed by the electricity generating company.
Yes, we want to make an appeal to all those who owe electricity bills to come forth. They should come and pay before we reach them. If we come to disconnect you, you have to pay all entire bill, including your reconnection fee, before power will be restored to your premises. To avoid such inconveniences, it is better you come forth to make your payment so that it saves all of us the trouble, because this agenda to collect the debts from our customers is not going to stop only after this month. It has become our agenda and it will continue.
From the Tyne District Hospital here in Isoko, my name is Anna Sabit reporting for JoyNews.
Let's head to the central region now, where more than 100 people displaced by tidal waves at Moree are yet to receive support. These families are struggling to find shelter and food after their homes were affected when the tragedy struck last week. Richard Kwedunako visited the community and came through with this report.
The strong waves swept through the town and displaced many. Days after the tragedy, the affected persons are still struggling to find shelter and food. Kwekwata Penyin is a resident here at Moree. More than 15 houses have been destroyed. Where the women used to smoke their fish have all been flattened. There was a filling station where I'm currently standing. It's been taken over by the sea. We are appealing to the president to intervene and help us out of the situation.
Na yɛn wia ndɛ krum fat ɔbɛyɛ na kumatu na igwane echi ansa na yɛlba abɔhwɛ dede ɔte dam ne baabi ofi bɛ yɛbɛ na yɛn dɛ na ejuru menyo kese na wayɛ ni su
Sofu Kwekutewia is the Brentahin of Moree. We all ran away when the disaster struck. When we returned, we saw that our buildings had collapsed. Now many of the people don't even know where to lay their heads. As I speak, a woman and her daughter are sleeping under a shed. The strong waves went beyond 100 meters of the shore into our homes. The premix fuel station here and many of the canoes of the fishermen have all been destroyed. The regent of Moree, Nana Obokesiampa the first, is destroyed.
We had a very catastrophic event here. If not for God, Ghana would be mourning the entire Moree community. The sea waves, the tidal waves, and it was just crazy. And it's not the first time this has been happening. We have been trying to reach out to government leaders to support us, to no avail. So last Monday, what happened is like the last straw that broke the camel's back. You see these households, they've all been displaced. Now we have hundreds of people with no shelter. When you come to Moree, you have what we call patase. Every community has patase. So these people has been reduced to sleeping under the sheds. Some are mothers, some are feeding their young babies. It's just sad. It's just so sad. If I should walk you right now to the community, you see people carrying their babies with no place to stay. So as a matter of urgency, this is an emergency. We need government to pay attention to us. We feel neglected. We feel like we have been so marginalized. No one is really concerned about the plight of Moree. But Moree is a very powerful community.
The Chief Executive Officer of Kwa Mesture, Professor Ato Duncan, who hails and resides in the district, called for government intervention to help support the community.
So this is the time all of us must stand up and see what we can do to help this community. I'm coming from the Center of Awareness Global Peace Mission point of view. Peace is an institution that seeks to address issues confronting peace. And I believe that this is a very serious issue confronting peace. Now about 100 people have been displaced, and you don't know what will happen in the next few weeks and few months. So I think that something must be done as early as possible. And this is a huge task. No individual can take this upon himself to fix this particular but there's a need to build a defense wall. So I'm pleading with the government to come in with immediate effect as early as possible. I'm also pleading with the World Bank also to consider if something can be given out for this particular project to be done as early as possible.
He donated some items to help assuage the suffering of the affected people. From Moree, Richard Kwejenyako reporting.
We head now to the Ashanti region, where the regional minister, Simon Osei-Mensah, has advised Muslim youth to conduct themselves righteously to reduce the worrying trend of deviant practices which hamper national development. This admonition follows an increase in teenage pregnancy, thievery, cybercrime, and substance abuse among the youth. Here's Emmanuel Bright-Kweku's report.
The Ashanti regional minister blames the spate of deviant behaviors on child negligence, leniency of parental control, and streetism. He urged Muslims to reflect on the essence of the Eid celebration to conduct themselves righteously in ensuring tranquility and development.
I wish to draw your attention to some other social cankers that have remained a bane in our society. Of much interest to me are the issues of teenage pregnancy, substance abuse, cybercrime, armed robbery, which have reached alarming proportions in our communities. Let me say that some of these deviant behaviors are developed because of child delinquencies, lack of parental care and control, as well as streetism, which were unchecked during early childhood development. Let us use this occasion to reflect on how we can conduct ourselves better for the benefit of the nation. Our conduct should guide the younger generations to shun vengeance, violence, indiscipline, and other negative attitudes.
Representative of the Asante-Hene, Nana Abdul Rahman Bodi, is worried over the affiliation of the Muslim community to misdemeanors in the country.
Yawa enfichire ne mantamo obatie yabache akromfo babro edua na emunkunu yankramofo din ebiso ana omo nkoso nkonkremu omo nyesala alwala kula wa munimu ye nanso no edin ne ya edaso kwa Musa Muhammad Ibrahim wa tanku kwa hwanti yababu ba bahane yakwa akobo kwa kuyebo abakon afra enzongo mpanimfo nyinala Meslamo ni ahemfo mimiamo ahemfo me beto mo enyinara meslamo mo ne mo mano etna na mo ne mo atuo mo fo afa Islam som na Islam som ye asumdue esom.
Reports suggest the emergence of jihadist activities in neighboring countries, with about 200 Ghanaians integrated into 4 notorious jihadist groups operating in West Africa. Deputy Director of Counter-Terrorism at the National Security, Daniel Osebonsu, prevailed on the Muslim community to support the government to curtail jihadist activities.
Gone are the days when people came to live with us and they went to the elders to seek for advice or seek for permission. Now it's done no more. So we have engaged the leaders that they should pay attention, given that there is an emergence of jihadist activities around us. But we know that the bond and the security we have created in this country, it remains robust and resilient. Hence, we require your cooperation. We require that you support us so that some of our brothers and sisters will not be recruited. We are here to ensure that we build Ghana together with you. National security cannot do the job alone. We need you.
Some Muslim youth welcomed the message, advising their brethren not to fall prey to such social misbehaviors.
What I have to say to them is we have to bring ourselves down and keep on praying, that, hoping that inshallah it shall be well. Yeah, giving yourself out so cheap wouldn't be something that will help in the future.
When the youth are educated as to what to do, and when they are engaged in so many things, it abstains them from indulging themselves in illegal activities.
People decide not to go to school and then they want to force on them. If someone decides not to go to school, there are other options. You can let the person learn other works. But then if you tend to force school on them, and they don't want it, they will end up following bad friends, skipping school, doing a lot of stuff.
If everybody talk to him child inside the house. So I believe inshallah outside we cannot get any cases like the way the Otunfo distant Chami talking about.
The Eid al-Fitr celebration is marked by Muslims globally to end the holy month of Ramadan. The month-long prayers and fasting is traditionally climaxed with observatory prayers for all Muslims, after which families gather to share meals, exchange gifts, and engage in charitable acts. We thank God for a new year. We are going home to make merry. We will pray to God to bless us with long life and prosperity. I'll be preparing tuzafi for my husband and his friends. Happy Eid to everyone. There are a lot of foods and drinks at home. Everyone is invited.
So for the Muslim community here in the Ashanti region, they are grateful to Allah for a successful Ramadan. They are hoping the new year brings in peace, joy, and prosperity. From here at the Kumasi Central Mosque, my name is Emmanuel Bright Kweku. Eid Mubarak.
And from the Kumasi Central Mosque, we come back into the AM show studio. Up next, the news review. Thank you for staying with us for the news review. Time now for us to get into the papers, and we're joined by Dr. Peter Anti. I'll be welcoming him onto the show shortly. But the segment, of course, is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening as well. You might want to take advantage of that. Now, here's where you can locate them. Here in Accra, they are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. There's also in Kumasi, Kronumabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrady Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hansua, and Isiama in Zema. You can actually call them on 0244-867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Well, joining us for this review is Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies, Dr. Peter Anti. He is our guest. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
It's good to have you. We've not spoken in a few months, I think. It's been a while. I hope you've kept well.
Yes, we are managing.
Managing, eh? They say the best managers are in Ghana because we do magic somehow.
Exactly.
Since you're talking about managing, how is the economy treating you?
It's not been easy. I have to be frank with you. I think that things are getting out of hands. Or if you look at how expensive things are in the market, if you look at our normal utility bills, how they keep going up. Nowadays, you buy prepaid like 100 Ghana cedis, and it takes you like 2-3 days. That is a little bit difficult to take. So,
whoa! Wait, is this at your residence? Is this at work? Where is it? You purchase 100 Ghana cedis of prepaid credits,
and
they last you 3 days.
Yes.
Where is this? At home or at your office?
Yeah, at home.
Peter, what are you using?
Oh, nothing.
Are you operating a chainsaw or a mill at home?
Unless maybe I run a cold store here. It's serious. It's crazy. Yeah. So I don't know.
No, I'm surprised. I mean, it runs and we're all plaintive. But 100 CDs every 3 days. Wait, let's do the math. So 100 CDs per 3 days, that would mean times 10, right?
Yeah.
In a month.
Yeah.
So you need about 1,000 CDs, thereabouts.
Yeah, sure. I don't know whether it's a fault with the meter, but I doubt if it is, because a prepaid meter,
But have you spoken to the ECG on this?
No, I haven't. Maybe I would have to talk to them. But it's an observation I've made, and it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
So in that instance, how much would you ordinarily top up? It would mean that if you don't want the lights to go off unexpectedly, you may need to top up about 250, 300, thereabouts. And you know that would last you for about a week, right?
Yeah, sure. Or more.
Wow.
So if you buy 300, then you are doing like 10 days.
Okay. God be our help. I am being told it actually is the reality in so many households. It was just whispered to me that yes, it is actually the reality what you're saying. But for me, that is. Wait. So if you run such a bill, how much would you have to earn as a salary or from your side gigs and all of that just to keep body and soul together? I always say that for me, I went to the bank the other day because I am on a facility that thanks to no thanks to the monetary policy rate has shot up because my terms were variable, has shot up from where it was much higher. So what comes in and the value I would have got a year and a half or two ago has been eroded by what are you saying? And if you add inflation to that, it means I literally have to, do the other things I do just to manage the situation. Sometimes people look at us and they think we're feeling the pinch. It is massive. And when I went to the bank as well, this is what they told me. Some people who are on facilities, right now, they can't even make up. Your salary goes through the bank, they take their portion, and what is left is yours. Now, with the hike in the monetary policy rate and all of that, for some people, what they were getting earlier, that the bank would take its share and then you are left with something. Now, even that sum, the entirety of the sum, is not enough to facilitate the monthly requirement. Yeah. And so now they have to top up. They have to give them bank
additional money. It's crazy, and when it happens like this, then it means that you have to work extra hard to be able to keep up with all your expenses and bills that you have. And when that happens, it means you are putting more stress on yourself, and it comes with it attendant illness and breakdowns of the body system. I think we need to find ways and means to cushion ourselves in terms of some of these things, bills. I mean, water bill, electricity, and the basic things that we need to be able to keep up. Because if those who are gainfully employed are going through this hardship, you can't imagine what the people who do not have anything doing. And when you talk about that,
the people who do not have anything doing tend to fall on us. And so it all comes back to us. Because you have to do a lot of charity in the course of the month. There are relations here, there are responsibilities there. And before you realize it, because they don't have work to do, it also falls back on you. And it becomes even more of a problem.
Exactly. It's unfortunate.
Anyway.
Let's hope for the best.
Let's hope for the best, but the best doesn't just fall down on people. Else people would wish, and like they say, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, Doc, improving living conditions of Ghanaians. Interesting how it starts, because that's exactly what we're talking about. Improving the living conditions of Ghanaians. Government vows to do more. V pursuers at Eid prayers. Asian African Consortium partners UCC to boost grain production in Ghana and absorb cancer treatment costs nationwide. Dr. Saki appeals to government. A lot of those who have whatever cancers, especially my heart breaks with the childhood cancers. When this happens, the cost of treatment is so high, a lot of them cannot afford it. And sometimes there are deaths that could be avoided, but because of a lack of resources, and a lot of the time because they determine it late, there are all of these problems. But anyway, on the back page, Kotoko fight back to beat Adriana. And Adriana are top with 47 points. Bechem United with 44. Mediama with 44 as well. And now Kotoko with 42 points, level with Hearts of Oak, who lost recently to Bechim United. But let's get into the substantive stories. So on page 11, government vows to do more, VIPA shows at Eid prayers. What exactly are they doing better? Well, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia has indicated government's determination to do more to improve the living conditions of Ghanaians despite the challenging economical environment the country finds itself in and the skepticism of the government's critics. I think that should be economic. Well, he said the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo-led government would continue to pursue inclusive policies to benefit every citizen irrespective of their status. Quoting him, he says, "Inclusiveness brings harmony, and the best way to achieve same is to bring development to all by thinking outside the box and come out with effective and transformational policies that benefit all." What's your quick take on that? Do you see that? At least it's an assurance that he's given, but we're in the 7th year. Next year will be the 8th year, final year of the Akufo-Addo-led administration. In terms of improving our living conditions, how would you say this government has fared?
Well, I think that in difficult times, what you don't want to see or hear is that you don't want your leaders to also give up, just like the people are giving up. So it becomes important that leaders give us hope and depict to us that they are doing everything possible to make things stabilize and make things work for us. But I think that there's an extent that you can do that, because when you continue to give assurances and at the end of the day nothing is showing, it gets back to what Alan Chamantin said, you talk all the time, no action. And I don't think that we want to get there, because I feel that people are a little bit have given up. I mean, there's no hope in the system. Most people do not think that things can be turned around anytime soon. So just giving hope that you will do more, I think is not enough. I think by this time we should see some concrete steps that are leading to a turnaround of the economic hardship that we are going through. And I feel that we are not doing much to bring down the hardship that people are really going through. So the words are important. There's the need to encourage and show that leadership is still hoping for the best. But I think we should put they should make us feel that the leadership.
Hello, Doc.
Is really doing. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I lost you for a moment. Go ahead, please.
All right. Another part is that we need to also be a little bit reflective and admit that things are going out of hand. And when we have some of these platforms, we need to speak like we have really admitted that things are really going out of hand. And when we do that, people now come to understand that, look, we are on the same level. Then we also need to show in our acts and deeds that truly we sympathize with the people and the things that they are going through. I think that these are things that leaders do in difficult moments to ensure that they carry the people along. And so we talk about critics and other things. I don't think this is the time to even talk about your opponent. This is the time to put your eye on the ball and ensure that you turn the system around. Then you can stand chest out and say that we said we would do it and we have done it. But if you keep talking about your opponent, you keep talking about people you think wish negative for you, then it means that your focus is so much on your opponent and not about turning around the situation that all of us we find ourselves in.
Interesting thoughts there. Let me just get to page 7. It talks about Rebecca Akufo-Addo, an exemplary first lady and paragon of compassion. It's an interesting piece by Eche Sikanku. You can take a look at that story. Just quoting one paragraph. In the immutable history of first ladies worldwide, They have come in various shades and colors: the dramatic, the fearful, the forceful, the traditional, the policy wonks, the ceremonial, and the moderate. Ma Becky, as he calls her, has carved a niche for herself as a figure of respect. You can check out details of that, a sort of celebration of the First Lady. That is on page 7. But let's get into other, hard-cutting issues. Absorb cancer treatment costs nationwide. Dr. Saki appeals to government, and the government has been urged to absorb the cost of all cancer treatment in the country. That, according to the principal medical physicist at the National Radiotherapy, Oncology and Nuclear Medicine Center at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Dr. Theophilus Saki, was crucial to limiting the exposure of patients to quacks and unsafe treatments that often lead to complications and the loss of life. Depending on the treatment modality one is put on, quoting him, he says, one can spend a minimum of 10,000 Ghana cedis on each, and that is an amount the average Ghanaian simply cannot raise. People come here, and once they are told the cost, they go soliciting for funds, and by the time they come back, a stage 1 case, which could have been easily treated, has developed to stage 3. And that is the situation. Let me add this so you respond to it. Report on illegal mining by Professor Frimpong Boateng, catalogue of grievances and hearsay. That's according to government. What do you make of that issue, Doc? Because as we speak, there are galamseyas on our water bodies, around our water bodies. And if you follow what Professor Frimpong Boateng has been saying, to wit, there are people in government. He points to the Jubilee House itself, the seat of the presidency, and according to him, they are involved in galamsey. You know what they say? If the crocodile or if the frog comes from the bottom of the pond to tell you that the crocodile is dead, you don't dispute it because you are not there with it. You and I were not there. What do you make of those developments? Because he mentions some interesting names, bigwigs within the MPP. Yesterday, I engaged Dr. Arthur Kennedy of the MPP. He says he's still a member, he insisted. And he said that these people were criminal. I mean, it was corroborated by Professor Appiagyei Etua. What do you make of these two stories? Cancer treatment and the cost, and of course, illegal mining and what it's doing to our country.
Well, let me start with the cancer treatment. I think that if we have a very good working health insurance system, some of these things need to be taken care of. All of us are open or susceptible to some of these illness, and nobody can say that he or she can be taken out of it. So we need to find ways and means to absorb some of these things. And these are the social nets that keeps a country moving. These are the social nets that gives hope to the hopeless, those who do not have. Because I feel that sometimes when some of these things happen, and those who have the resources, all that they do is normally to travel outside, fly to countries that they can get the needed treatment, and they come back fit. But what about those of us who do not have that kind of resource? So it means that we are left with the little that we have and the poor medical system that we normally experience in our various health facilities. So we need to pay attention to what the doctor is saying, and I think that we government should do more. Some of these are the things that keeps the people alive. So if there's a way that we can go around this, channel resources into it, and ensure that people with that kind of health issues are given the needed assistance, even if there will be some kind of payment structure for them, I think that will give them hope that at least when you go to the hospital, you can be treated, and then you are given space to pay for the cost of the treatment. I think that is something that, especially when it's got to do with kids, I think that is something that we should think through and see how best we'll be able to work around it, because we cannot continue to the society where some of these social nets are not functioning. And when somebody is sick in terms of that, he needs to produce the money before he or she can be attended to. But with the galamsey issue, you see, in 2016, I got the opportunity to work with a German Research Institute. I was their national consultant,
right,
on a cocoa project. Of course, my background in research. with, I think it's Cocoa Abrabopa also. So I traveled across all the cocoa regions in Ghana, and I visited villages, and I knew, in fact, I had first-hand knowledge about how the cocoa farms were flourishing. We did this study, which was a longitudinal study, till 2020, where we had the COVID. In 2020, the Research Institute lost their funds, so we couldn't do the final part, which is the end line. So we did 2016, we did 2018, and we wanted to do 2020, but we didn't get the funding. And I can tell you that within that period, you will see, because we had a map that have mapped all these cocoa areas that we can just see from our laptops. You could see the damage that we have done to these cocoa areas. And it is no joke at all. So and one interesting thing is that some of these cocoa associations are folding up because of the practice that now people are giving out their lands for galamsey activities to take place. So for me,
some of them are being forced because they mine all around your farm. So it doesn't make any sense. There are no nutrients coming to the farms, the farmland anyway. So you'll sell it cheap. But for some, I mean, I think there was that viral video, I think sometime last year, where the person was saying, I've planted cocoa for decades or so. I've not made anything, but I'm doing galamsey and I'm getting something. And all of those are there.
Yeah, sure. So for me, if there is any sort of information from anybody, whether the person is a former minister, whether the person had a particular committee to fight this, or whether the person is an ordinary man like me, we should treat it with all the seriousness that it deserves. And I feel that should have been the posture of government. Because
so just to conclude on this, you say we should address it with all the seriousness it deserves. The minority is saying there must be a probe by Parliament. In fact, that is corroborated by Dr. Arthur Kennedy, by Professor Apiaje Etua. When I had that discussion with them yesterday, they both said there had to be a parliamentary probe. But how do you go about this when the people who are accused are the very people at the top? Look at the names in there.
That is what creates the difficulty, and especially when we all sat down and waited till somebody broke out the news. I think is it Kevin Taylor or somebody broke out the news on social media. Then we had the deniers coming, and in fact, the presidency. I mean, I've seen a news release. I think on the website of the presidency indicating that these are issues that were raised by the professor, but they call them hearsays or rumors or something of that sort.
A catalogue of grievances and hearsay. That's what they called it.
Yeah, it tells you how those are the top seas days. But it's sad that we have to get to this stage in terms of our national development, because this has also got to do with the future of the generation that we have. If the current generation were handed over this kind of environment, I wonder what they would have done. And that is one of my greatest concerns, that it seems that the current leadership, our fathers, let me use that word, our fathers have decided that they would want to destroy everything for our generation and the generations to come, because they had things on a silver platter. And I keep making this point. In terms of even tertiary education, they tell you, and you speak to them, they tell you the kind of education they had. They were one in a room, they were fed, they were giving allowances, and sometimes when they were stepping out of the university, their works were ready for them. That is not the kind of future they are living for us. So I think that leaders, our current generation, our fathers, should stand up and make sure that we save the environment for the children that are coming. That is something that they owe us and they have to do.
Doc, let's make the most of the next 5 to 6 minutes, see what we can do. We can cover a number of papers, the major stories, of course. The Daily Guide this morning, Frimpong Boateng's report, personal grievances, that's according to the presidency. How personal the grievances are, we do not know. Africa is ready for business, that's according to Baumia. Killer cop busted on the run, killer in quote. And then, of course, there is that lady there, Victoria Dapa, who was shot dead. There are two interesting Galamsey-related stories on page 6. I'll take them. Police grab Axim Galamsey man and Major Mahama killed protecting Galamsey site. But let's take a quick look at that story on page 3. So a serving police officer, Inspector Ahmed Chumesi, has been arrested on suspicion of murdering 26-year-old Victoria Dapa. The young lady, popularly known as Mami Adwa or Majwa, as social media has couched it, was shot multiple times at close range on Thursday night at Edum in Kumasi around the Dufie Towers close to Asida House. He's been apprehended now. And yesterday on social media, I saw what was supposedly the CCTV footage of the incident right before the shooting happened. But let's turn to page 6 now. So police in the Western region have arrested one Kwame Ato Asare, a.k.a. Kwame Eni, who is believed to be the main suspect in the March 9, 2023 attack on the Axim District Police Patrol Unit. Kwame Ato Asare, 21, was arrested along with 3 others, increasing the total number of suspects arrested in connection with the crime to 8. Williams Kofi, 17, Richard Kwesi, and Emmanuel Kojo Bruni, 17, and the 3 other suspects who were on the police radar but went into hiding following the incident. So he too has been apprehended. And tied to that, Major Mahama killed protecting Galamsey site. Now, the chairman of the defunct Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Professor Kwabena Frimpong-Boateng, has revealed in a damning report that Major Maxwell Adam Mahama was killed while protecting a mining concession in Dentra Boise. According to the report, Major Mahama was deployed to protect a mining concession belonging to C&J Aleska, a mining company owned by Donald Ensia and a Turkish or Canadian partner, when he met his untimely death. Detailing how the unfortunate incident led to then Captain Mahama's death, the report, authored by Professor Frimpong-Boateng, a former Minister of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, pointed out that, quote, during the last NDC regime, several mining companies signed MOUs with the Ghana Army that regulated the supply of security services to the mining companies, which included C&J Aleska. Many Ghanaians will remember the name C&J Aleska, a mining company co-owned by Donald Ensua and a Canadian national called Simon Amon. That caused a lot of destruction in the town then known as Dentra Boise, near Diaso or Dioso in the central region. So, per what he is saying, this was what culminated in the death of now Major Mahama. You see how far this goes. If we're to give credence to what Prof is saying, you see just how far this whole Galamsey scourge goes. But anyway, of course, that situation has been unraveled to some extent, but those are the latest developments. Any quick reactions as we move on?
I think that we keep catching the small fishes, and I think it's time that if we had strong institutions by this time now, people should have been invited, and a lot of interrogations should be going on. Of course, our institutions seems to be politically captured. So everything that we now do, we do in this country is either you are working for A or you are working for B. We don't have institutions that can stand up and say that this is the situation, we want to take charge of it, and we want to make sure that we bring the big fishes to book. And by bringing the big fishes to book, we are curtailing the problem. You can go on and arrest the young guys on the field doing the Galamsey. I've always said that no big man who is involved in Galamsey can be arrested at the Galamsey site. So when you send soldiers and police people there to arrest those kids, what you are doing is that the next time the big man would employ another group of young people to go and do it, and you keep arresting them. Then the one who is actually benefiting from it continues to enjoy his booty, as we put it. I pray that institutions like the Office of the Special Prosecutor, maybe Shiraj, maybe the CID, should step in this time and handle the rumors and the grievances of Professor Frimpong. And let's see how far we can go with this. Again, I think that Parliament can also do that. But of course, if you look at the political nature of our Parliament, you will see that a group would seek to protect the image of their party, and another group will seek to project the image of their party. We don't need that at this time. And I believe that if we want to really solve this, we need to start catching the big fishes. And it will take a strong institution in this country to stand up and then deal with this issue. Else, everything that we can do is to talk about it, and we will talk about it, and nothing would change. I sympathize with the family of Major Mahama because I think that he obeyed authority and went to that side. Of course, you can imagine if he decided not to go when he was, soldiers and their command system. Right. So he obeyed authority and he had to face this untimely death. But we have to find those really behind it, the big fishes. Whether these are rumors or not, we need to get the big fishes. And by doing that, an institution in the country should stand up and save the environment for us once and for all.
I'll wrap with 3 newspapers. Just read the headlines from The Finder and do 2 stories from the Graphic Business and Economy Times. Now, The Finder says, Printpag Bank of Ghana Media Workshop didn't discuss Professor Frimpong Boateng. It's some surprise there, supposedly, that there was no such discussion to plot the downfall of Professor Frimpong Boateng. Division erupts among 2 individual bondholder groups, pictured there, Senor Jose and Martin Kwebu. Get details on page 13. Standards Authority Board Chair, top officials cited for contempt, and 44.6% of Ghanaians insured. Confidence in industry rises from 60% to 78%. But the Graphic Business this morning, economy set for second slowdown. So there's good and the bad. The Economy Times gives us some of the good, but the Graphic Business, economy set for second slowdown. Revenues, jobs at stake. Economist calls for review of targets. And the economy is set for a slowdown again this year after failing to grow as expected in 2022. Growth slowed down to 3.1% last year, below the target of 3.7%, and is now set to dip further to below 2% this year. Experts have agreed the government's target of 2.8% growth is now elusive as debt pressures and funding constraints threaten the rate at which the economy can expand. Now, economist and lecturer at the Academic City University, Eugene Bawele, said government would have to lower its 2023 gross domestic product target of 2.8% in the mid-year budget review after missing out on the 2022 target. The Economy Times looks at that same matter, but actually says Ghana's economy is expanding and that we are doing better than estimated. So interesting, headlines from both. But a quick reaction on that, and we can say goodbye.
Yeah, for me, I think that the economy is what you feel in your pocket. And that is why I want leadership to man up and take responsibility of what is going on. We should, for once, forget about the opponent and tackle the issue. When you are able to transform the economy, people feel it in their pocket. You don't need to even talk about it. So that I think that should be the focus of anybody managing the economy at this point in time. People will continue to play with the figures. People will continue to play politics with it. But there are people who are living the economy. They wake up every morning and they know how they feel. These people should be our target. That if you're able to improve the system, these people will feel it. And when they feel it, it will translate into whatever it is that we want them to do for us. So that is basically what I want to say. And I think this problem of always resorting to stabilization policies should give way to looking at structural policies. You see, because this 4-year term that we have, it gives the government in power an idea of only putting down, measures that will only help them to win the next election and not to think about a long-term process of transforming our economy. And that is what we've been doing ever since. We need to move away from this and start thinking of structural policies that will span like 10 to 15 years and forget about the political power. At the end of the day, when people see that you are transforming the economy, they would keep you in power to continue the good work that you are doing.
Thank you, Dr. Peter Anti, for joining the conversation, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. We're very grateful for your time. Do have the best of the day, sir.
Thank you.
And we veer into sports, but right before that, this segment, again, brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening. Reach them here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Krono Mabwehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrade Anaji State Tema 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama in Zima. You can call them. I prefer that you do. 0244-867-068 is the number to call, or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But as we get into sports, of course, a lot to talk about. Kotoko pipping Aduana, the league leaders, to it in the local league. But of course, we saw Manchester United qualify to the FA Cup finals. It's the first time we're going to see a Manchester derby at the FA Cup finals level. And I know we don't do basketball a lot of the time, but I'm interested in the fact that the LA Lakers are 3-1 up against the Memphis Grizzlies. Love basketball? Maybe you can check it out. Sports up next.
Let's do sports now on the AM show with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah, and we start with boxing, where two-time IBF world champion Joseph Akakpo claims that the boxing community do not appreciate his achievements. Despite winning world title twice, he believes that he deserves some respect from the people who govern the sport.
I do not have any issue with the Ghana Boxing Authority. If I will have any issue, maybe it will be an individual people on the board who may have issues with me. I don't know if for a tribal reason or not. I grew up in BC. I spent most of my time in BC. So I see myself more of a gun than even an Ewe. You know, so I don't know why, but the boxing community does not appreciate me, does not love me. They don't treat me like how they treat the other fighters. I don't know if because I'm from the Volta region or whatever, but I actually live there. But for some reason, there are a lot of people in there that they don't like me.
So you felt marginalized?
Even with the Bukum Boxing Arena. When you go inside the Bukum Boxing Arena, there is a place where they have all the champions' picture in there.
Yeah, I can even picture some of them. Yeah.
When you go in there, you know, Joseph Akakpo was not a fighter who just won a world title once. When you look at the champions, from the greats Azuma Nelson, DK Poison, everyone, if you want to mention about 3 or 4 great champions among all the 10, you mention me because I was 2 times world champion. I even added a bonus one, which is IBO, and IBO is not a recognized world title. Yeah. So I would say 2 times world champion. Azuma was 3 times. Nana Okonedu was also, I think, 2 or 3 times or 2 division. So, but I was behind those top great fighters. So I have achieved a lot in the boxing fraternity, you know. So there's no way anybody trying to put pictures of fighters who has achieved for Ghana and they wouldn't think about Joseph Akakpo.
So you feel that people of Bukum don't appreciate you, and even the boxing?
The boxing, I don't think
they don't respect you.
It's not. I wouldn't say they don't. They don't appreciate me. I don't know. I don't know. But
do you feel hurt by this?
Come again?
Do you feel hurt that, despite all the successes you've chalked, if you're putting up an arena that is dominated by boxing legends and they don't consider you in there, it's quite an insult. Do you feel hurt?
Yeah, I would say, yes, I feel hurt sometimes.
Joseph Akakpo there, speaking to Joy Sports on claiming that the people within the boxing community do not like him maybe because of his stripe. Let's do football now. And Kumasi Asante Kotoko 1-2-1 against Ediana Stars in the ongoing Ghana Premier League. And this means that they are now 5 points behind leaders of the league, which is the Doma-based club. Interim coach of the team, Abdullah Ghazali, says with only 5 points difference between them who are placed fifth and those at the first place of the Premier League table, he believes that winning the league title is not beyond their reach.
But we still have about 7 matches to go, and you see what happened. All those who were at the first 4, they all drop points. So anything can still happen. We are now moving to the 4th place. And I strongly believe that if we are able to continue this, we are going to get to the top of the table.
Next stop is in Sogakope against a relegation-threatened Great Olympics. How are you looking forward to that one?
Well, they are not so bad, but unfortunately they are at the bottom of the threatened place of the relegation zone. Let me put it that way. But we are not going to joke with it because we have our aim. Our aim is to get on top of the table. Definitely, we are not going to take it easy. We are going all out against Olympics again to see how best we can get that 3 maximum points in order to also catch up with those who are ahead of us.
And next month, Ghana's Black Princesses will be participating in the WAFB Women's Cup of Nations. The competition will be staged at the Baba Yara and Dr. Che Sports Complex. Head coach of the team, Yusuf Basige, says that he's got loads of work to do to ensure that his team is in good shape to be very competitive.
There is a lot of work to be done because the crop of players that went to the Costa Rica World Cup we also not have all of them here. So transitionally, we have to bring on board the maidens players. And because they didn't play the World Cup, you know, we could not just pick most of them so far as playing a high-level competition is concerned. However, we depended on the database given as by the technical head of the Black Maidens. And then also I went around to scout for players during the league matches and bringing the potentials together. So looking at the task ahead, we have very limited time. And already we have some household names. Fortunately, we have some household names in the team that is under 20, and also very good potentials in the under 17. Immediately we are going to blend them together to raise a formidable team, especially now that we are hosting. We need to do all that we can to impress Ghanaians, to live up to expectations. So this one, I don't even need the FA to give me a target. I know what it takes to, get up there. And for that matter, I've already discussed with the technical team to let us all work assiduously in order to achieve our set target.
And that's your sports for now. We do have more sports stories on myjoyonline.com. The show continues right after this.
Well, here we are back on the AM show. And, of course, we're talking our first big story. It has to do with illegal mining, Galamsey. And all the talk about it on the back of Professor Frimpong Boateng's piece that he has put out. That report didn't see the light of day until 2 years after. This morning, we explore that issue, which we did yesterday, but from different angles with two different personalities. I'm talking about former Lands and Natural Resources Minister Inusa Fuseni. He joins the conversation. We also have Elizabeth Ava joining the conversation as well. Lady, gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good
morning, Benjamin. How are you?
I am very well. Do we have Elizabeth on board?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning. It's very early here, so excuse my drowsiness.
Oh, you are wholly excused. We totally understand. Elizabeth Va, of course, is Executive Director, Environmental Advocacy Group. I'll start with, for you, when you saw the Professor Frimpong Boateng report, what went through your mind? And of course, there have been rebuttals, there have been responses from the likes of Kojo Ponkroma, from the likes of Gabi Asare Otrodako. Lord Kome has spoken, among others. As the show goes on, we'll play some of those inserts. But what for you has been or was your initial reaction when you saw this 30-plus page report and considering the reactions? Let's start from what your initial thoughts were. I'll start with you, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much. Good morning to your audience. I think I've stopped being surprised by anything that comes out of Ghana nowadays, especially on the illegal mining front. But this is like someone coming from the middle of it all and telling Ghanaians that no, your issues haven't been out of a vacuum. Your issues are there because there is no willingness from the top to deal with anything. Because for this report to have been there for 2 solid years, and the president had this letter and he still went around telling people all sorts of things, always talking about lack of evidence. I mean, what else did he need? So no, I wasn't surprised. Nothing surprises me anymore. And then the rebuttals that have been coming out, it's just laughable. Sometimes they should just keep quiet because they've shown that they don't care about Ghanaians. They don't care. So even going through the trouble of trying to rebut, and I see them writing it's all hearsay. Wow, hearsay from the man in the middle of it all. I mean, no, I am not surprised, but it's just like when you listen to it all, it just sad, the state that we are in as Ghanaians. Nothing surprises me, and my biggest worry right now is that this dies with the news cycle, because I mean, what is there? Who is going to do what? That's my biggest worry right now. But nothing surprises me from President Akufo-Addo and his government anymore when it comes to illegal mining.
I find that surprising because this president, only a few years ago, I think sometime in 2017, thereabouts, said he was putting his very presidency on the line in the fight against Galamsey. In fact, one of those whose names have been pointed to, Gabi Asare Otrodako, posted something back then to the effect that posterity would not forgive the Akufo-Addo government if they did not win the fight against Galamsey. Was all of that hypocrisy, do you think?
Yes, it was. Because the C&J mining, I've gone through the latest from the professor, and C&J mining, you are supposed to be the legal firm or advisor or whatever for this company, and look at the footprint that they've left behind. And you still have the nerve to come out and talk about not leaving a legacy. They didn't have any legacy to leave, and they haven't left anything for Ghanaians. You look at what these people have done. Then I don't. You see, Ghanaians, I think we are to blame for believing in anything that President Akufo-Addo and his people said. It just keeps coming back to bite us. The man doesn't even believe in what is coming out from the mouth at the time he's saying it. He doesn't believe in it. So we believe him at our own risk at this point.
But to be fair to the president, how can we tell what he does believe when he's saying it and what he doesn't believe? Or is it a case of by their fruits you shall know them?
Exactly. I mean, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We have seen every now and again that this man says the right things. He speaks so beautifully about such beautiful things, but he doesn't do any of it, and he doesn't believe in it. So why would we? How can you put your presidency on the line, say you are going to fight this, and then right within your own circle, it's happening? What better way to show Ghanaians that you really mean your words? By starting within your circle, clean your own house. And then you come back, even after 2 years of sitting on a report like this, to say it is all hearsay. And you expect Ghanaians to still think that you put anything on the line. He's actually the one fronting it, because if he didn't pave the way, if he didn't tolerate everything that is going on around him, I'm sure Ghanaians wouldn't have the audacity and impunity to do the same thing. If the guard dog is itself destroying, what prevents the rest of the flock from joining in?
That is deep. Hold for me, Elizabeth. Let me bring in Inusaf Hussaini, former Lands and Natural Resources Minister. You have been here handling the specific sector. And for those who, look at this sector, I just had an interaction earlier this morning with Dr. Peter Anti, who says he was with this organization that some years back was conducting some studies and all of that, and the sort of destruction, devastation that was taking place was just unconscionable. Here we are, matters have come to a head one more time, and we're talking about the very people walking the corridors of power, those who wield power, who are said to be involved in destroying our own natural resources and benefiting from it, while the masses cannot even get hospital beds. I'd like to find out from you, what was your initial reaction when you saw what Professor Frimpong Boateng had put out there?
Benjamin, let me extend my regards to you and your my co-panelist, Elizabeth, and to say that, like Elizabeth, I was not surprised. I was not surprised because we have always known that the Akufo-Addo's government is not committed to the fight against illegal small-scale mining. And the evidence abounds. During the period of 2017 to 2018, when there was a total ban on mining, small-scale mining, whether legal or illegal, Ghana exported the highest amount of gold from the small-scale mining sector. Any president will want to know how this came about. Now, I'm not surprised because we all know that between the period 2007 to 2020, the fight against illegal small-scale mining was a complete and spectacular failure, because names of persons who were floated about were clearly associated with this government. There were allegations of bribery of members of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Small-Scale Mining. We had allegations of soldiers providing protection for people who were engaged in illegal small-scale mining. We had rumors of senior party officials of the MPP engaged in illegal small-scale mining. I can go on and on and on and on. So it didn't come to me as a surprise that Frimpong Boateng had, in the report, poured out his frustration on the fight against illegal small-scale mining, of which he was the chairman of the Interministerial Committee.
So for you, little surprise, or in fact, no surprise that all of this...
At all.
No surprise at all. Not even with some of the names that are being mentioned?
Not at all. You see, because in northeast region of Ghana, there is a tribe called the Bimbobe, and they have a profound saying that when your mother or grandmother is accused of witchcraft, you deal with the allegation against your mother or grandmother to acquire the moral authority to deal with other people's mothers and grandmothers. And so, if you fail to deal with your mother, and like Akufo-Addo, he who failed to deal with allegations of complicity in illegal small-scale mining by officers of his regime, by appointees of his regime, he lost the moral authority to fight any other person. And so it was open for all. Like, people just got into the small-scale mining sector with impunity, and everybody was scrambling for a piece of the cake. And that's why you see that level of devastation. Now let me backtrack and say, without any fear of contradiction, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, when he said that he was putting his presidency on the line, was simply grandstanding. He didn't have the intention, there was no commitment to fight the illegal mining activities. It was grandstanding. And you see grandstanding of Nana Akufo-Addo in other areas as well. And that's why Elizabeth says he talks beautifully. That's grandstanding. And in grandstanding, you have political deception. So probably we have to blame ourselves, because he told us to take a chance on him. He spoke beautifully in the words of Elizabeth. We took a chance on him. But like Michelle Obama says, the presidency doesn't change a man. It reveals the character of a man. Now, Frimpong Boaten's report put the seal on Akufo-Addo's character and attitude towards Ghanaians and national issues. It's a nail in the coffin of the fight against illegal small-scale mining.
Let me come to Elizabeth now. Based on the points that have been made, yesterday in my interaction with Dr. Arthur Kennedy, he said that these people were criminals in government. That he was very harsh, or should I say hard, maybe not harsh, but hard in categorizing those who were involved in this. I believe Professor Appiah as well. I may be mixing it up, but he said simply that some of the actions that Dr. Arthur Kennedy enumerates are all illegal. So if you engage, in fact, Professor Frimpong Boateng, so if you engage in them, you are a criminal. And if you are in government engaging in that, then you are a criminal in government. That was his logic. What do you think about that? Especially as the very people who are supposed to lead the charge are now being pointed to as being behind the Galamsey or illegal mining menace. And if that be the case, if you agree that these people are criminals in government, what does that do to our governance systems and the fight against Galamsey itself?
Thank you so much. He hit the nail right on the head. The people in government who have been fingered in this report. You know, in a working democracy, even the very perception of anyone, anybody in government, anybody in leadership, being linked to an illegal mining activity, and mind you, it's not just a matter of whether you have a license or not. And the Professor Frimpong Boateng lists it nicely. When I look at the things that IMCIM considers illegal, I see 80% of mining in Ghana right now as falling into that category. It doesn't matter whether they have licenses or not. And so for people in government to not only be linked to it, but actually be even said to be involved in it. People close to this president, like Gabi, being the lawyer of some of these companies. And people owning concessions where these things were happening. And they are right by the president within the corridors of power in government. And nothing is happening. Look at, what's his name? Professor Wontumi. Wontumi was...
You mean Chairman Wontumi?
Yes, Chairman Wontumi, in the middle of the Nimre forest, mining all the effluent running straight into the tunnel. Sometimes even within the tunnel. And just within the week that this came out, when every Ghanaian who heard of it was wondering when this was going to end, he was by the side of the president at the palace of Manshia. I mean, then you ask yourself, where exactly are we headed? And so it's all come full circle that this time around, it's not people standing around, people like Erastus and the good journalists risking their lives to come out with these things. But it is somebody who is right in the middle of it, in charge of implementing the president's own rhetoric of putting his presidency on the line. And then he comes out with this, that everybody around me, around the president, was himself or herself in the middle of it. And do we expect to get anywhere with this in this current state that we are in, where the police head is appointed by the president?
Are you suggesting the hands of Dr. Dampare are tied in the matter, and so he cannot act simply because he was appointed by the president?
Yes, because just Chairman Wontumi alone should have been arrested at the time that this thing came up, or the people in his company, whoever are the key decision makers in his company. And look at that, like civil society virtually has had to beg the police to do something, and still nothing has happened. No. So in our current democratic setup, nothing is going to happen. Parliament is broken down into two. The opposition is on one hand, and it looks like every parliamentarian from the ruling NPP thinks that they must go with exactly what their president does. You are killing your own party. I mean, if Ghana was a place where people really, and sorry if I come out harsh, but I just don't understand the kind of democracy we are running. That the president is always right. The executive is always right for the ruling party parliamentarians, and then it's the opposite for the other one. We should think Ghana for once. So I don't have any what do you call it? I don't have any faith in our parliamentary setup to be able to do anything, in our investigative bodies to be able to do anything, in our police, in even what do you call it? The Shrajas of the world. And right now, in the current setup where the president is in charge of every meaningful organization that can do something about it, even the Supreme Court, I don't have any confidence in all of that.
But Elizabeth, that's a bit. You've given into despondency then, because if it sounds as though you had thrown your hands in the air and said it is simply not going to work. We cannot fall for that either, can we? I mean, if you've given up on Parliament, you've given up on the executive, obviously, from what you've been saying, and you've given up on the judiciary, the courts, then what are you? You're left with only the media. Do you have any trust in us?
No, I don't trust you that much either. But, so my point is that it comes back to us. It comes back to the community, the youth in those communities, and to the chiefs. although most of them have also been, I don't know what to put it. But it comes back to us, the citizens, the CSOs. Are we going to scream at it right now that it is hot news and then just go back to our cocoons? This is where I'm hoping, I'm wishing that we all come together as civil society organizations, as concerned citizens, Ghanaians from every walk of life. We come together and say enough is enough, because these organizations won't do much. Look at what the committee that investigated the Ayawaso work on. Even if they come up with the best, information, laying everything bare, it's just a white paper from the presidency, and it just dies. So right now, it's up to Ghanaians to say enough is enough. It's up to the youth in our communities. And I'm glad to see a community like Asemkrom, where the youth have stood up and said enough of this. Their chief is right in the middle of bringing Galamsey to the area when they don't even have much land to deal with right now, and their cocoa farms are virtually about to be taken over by Galamseyers. They call them community mining. That's just nomenclature. But these youth, they have said enough of this, and they're taking their chief on, they're taking anybody else on to say that we won't sit there for you to destroy this. I think these are the groups we need to start highlighting in the media also, to let Ghanaians know that we cannot leave our destiny in the hands of criminals in government, criminals in the various places that we would otherwise think we could get some respite. They are not there for us.
We cannot leave our destinies in the hands of criminals, you say. I have a message coming through from Frank Ezoble. I want to take it lest I forget. It says, Elizabeth Va, I'm very happy you did your very best with the team to empower the local youth to fight for our land, forest, and farms. Posterity is judging us all. I am happy a colleague called me this morning to listen to you on JoyNews because he knew I had been firmly everywhere defending the good works of the GEAG. And so that's a message for you, Elizabeth, someone who's obviously a fan. But let me come to Inusa Fuseini. There is an interesting aspect of the discussion we're having because, as Dr. Arthur Kennedy suggests, instead of government functionaries or those implicated in this latest, I tend to call it an expose of sorts, but that report by Professor Frimpong Boateng, instead of challenging his facts, according to Dr. Arthur Kennedy, they are impugning his person. How would you want the approach to this? If you were in government, what would be the approach you would have proffered? We've had people who have been named, and of course they have a right to defend themselves, come out and impugn Prof himself. In fact, some have alleged that Professor Frimpong Boateng himself was also involved in Galamsey before his ousting. How would you have approached a situation like that?
We need to appreciate the fact that we are into a new reality. And the new reality is that it appears to many people that state institutions set up for the purposes of protecting and securing the welfare of Ghanaians are failing. And so people are coming to accept the fact that civil community action probably is the action of last resort, so that the communities will take their destiny into their own hands. Now, talking about the report. Now, when I hear people talk about the report, and when I read the response from the presidency on the report, then I'm taken aback.
They say it's a catalogue of grievances and hearsay.
Catalogue of grievances and hearsay, and say the report was not backed by a transmitter letter. Now, it suggests to me that what the presidency is saying is that Frimpong Boateng, in a Rambo style, produced a report gained access to the Jubilee House, somehow managed to insert himself in the office of the Chief of Staff and left the report under a stack of documents. And they only found the report 2 years after. That is when it was left. But we know from the report, reading the report, that this was a report demanded by the Chief of Staff.
In fact, just to add before you go on, he mentions that he had a one-on-one conversation with the president and the former Forestry Commission boss, Sir John, was there, and he said to the president that this man is the one who is the greatest danger to our forests. Sir John was at post. If that turns out to be true, well, Sir John was at post until his unfortunate demise.
He said Sir John represented an existential danger to our forest reserves. And he's right. And he said it before the president. The question is, what did the president do? You talk about evidence. I thought that the president said he was a lawyer. What about extrapolation? You find that you are fighting a war against illegal activities in the mining sector, which is not abating. Don't you owe it to yourself and to the people of Ghana to investigate the reasons why you are not succeeding? You find that somebody displayed gold bars at a TV program. The Internal Revenue Authority did not show interest. The Ghana Police Service did not show interest. The Bureau of National Investigation did not show interest. And the president did not show interest. When our constitution vests minerals wherever in this country, in the president. That is the state in which we are. So the telltale signs were there. They have been there for a very long time. And any time you speak about them, they release their dogs on you. It's an environmental crime. It's a crime against humanity. It's a crime that compromises not only the ability of present generations to continue to live on the land, but also compromises intergenerational equity, the ability of future generations to continue to live on the land. It's a crime that exposes people who live in mining areas to hazardous chemicals being used by the miners. It's a crime that is targeting at the economic base of the country, destroying cocoa farms. And cocoa, we know, has been the largest contributor to the foreign exchange earning of this country. It's a crime that is exacerbating the climate change conditions because we are clearing the forests. Today we have about 8.8 hectares of forest left in this country. 8.8 million hectares of forest left in this country. So we know the disastrous consequences of the degradation. It's a crime that is polluting our water bodies. That in the communities where illegal mining takes place, nobody can now move to the water riverbank and fetch water to drink. Why? I say that if this were a serious government, all these people would have been in jail for a very long time. For a very long time. Does it make sense, Benjamin, that for centuries, our ancestors in the gold-producing areas knew that gold was in the water bodies, but they never attempted mining in water bodies. Why? They thought, our ancestors thought, that they owed us, the present generation, a responsibility to keep the water bodies clean. What do we think that we don't owe future generations that responsibility? And can be so irresponsible in the management of our natural resources. Indeed, I'm so disappointed in the president that I'm even short of words. Because he knows, unless, of course, you have not flown over the area. The president talks about evidence. Then in Frimpong Boateng annexed to the report pictorial evidence. Then in Frimpong Boateng name and provide evidence of persons who were engaged in small-scale mining. Indeed, if the president is saying that that evidence was prima facie, what prevented him from causing further investigations into the scanty, in quote, evidence that was provided by Frimpong Boateng? Clearly betrays the lack of interest of the president in stopping this menace. And he could not stop the menace. And he cannot stop the menace because his own people are involved in perpetuating this carnage.
Right. Hold for me there, Mr. Fuseni. I'll come back to you on the same questions, these same questions I'm about to pose to Elizabeth. Two of them very quickly. One, does it take away anything if Professor Frimpong Boateng himself dabbled in illegal mining? Does it? I mean, he's exposed all of this in that report. But does it take away the sting of it if he is found to be involved in that? And secondly, members of the other side, the NDC, we're focusing on the members of the MPP. Yes, there are a lot of them in there. But some mention is made as well of some members of the NDC. In fact, the report indicates that members of the opposition NDC had also acquired several mining concessions, especially in the western region. Quote, in the Wassa East district, a former NDC deputy minister who is also a member of parliament for the Wassa East constituency has been actively mining in the Subri forest for years. What do you make of this in terms of the NDC's push against government, fight Galamsey, but they also apparently had their hands in the cookie jar? What do you make of it, Elizabeth? Hello, Elizabeth?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Yes. It's just, regular, we measuring in the minors and really forgetting the big picture. A crime is a crime is a crime. And if Professor Frimpong Boateng on his part was also involved in it, it's just a matter of take the report he's presented and start a thorough investigation of it. Whether he is in it and he hasn't indicated his own on that report or not. Why do we have investigative bodies in this country that the poor taxpayer is paying for? So just poo-pooing the report that, Professor Frimpong Boateng was also involved, that is childishness. That is just a mark of the people that do not want to do anything with this very, very important information that we have right now. And whether it is NDC people involved or MPP people involved, a crime is a crime is a crime. Look at what they have done. Have they broken the laws of Ghana as with regard to mining? Yes. If yes, prosecute them to the highest level possible. It doesn't matter which whether they are under an elephant umbrella or an umbrella's umbrella. They are human beings who have committed crimes, and they have to be dealt with as such. We shouldn't lose focus. And you see, looking at those pictures you were showing, and looking at Ghana Army personnel, just protecting people while they pillaged our virgin forests. I mean, the Ghana Army has just sacked. Every single time something like this had come up, they've just, they go measuring in the minus, and then it just gets covered up, and we are still here. Ghana Army sworn to protect this country from internal and external forces. And this is the war being waged on us within our country by criminals. And you are actively involved. I read at a point that there was like an MOU where you supply people, you supplied Ghanaian soldiers to protect those destroying Ghanaian lands.
In fact, if I may add, in today's Daily Guide newspaper on page 6, it suggests, according to the same report, that Major Mahama, or then Captain Mahama, was deployed to protect a mining concession belonging to C&J Alaska, and that was what ultimately led to his unfortunate demise. So you see how far the tentacles, if we are to take what he is saying, and if that is the truth, and there have been suggestions of same even in the past, if we're to take that as the gospel truth, and then you would see how far-reaching the tentacles of illegal mining have come, leading even to death in some instances.
Yes, and all those criminals, crime has no expiry date. I don't trust the setup we have right now because they won't do much. But Ghanaians, we need to come together. If we need to go to the international court, I don't know where we can go, but we need to line up all these criminals and make sure that they face justice. Make sure that
Are you saying, my apologies, are you saying that you've got to the point where you do not trust any system in the country to do justice on this issue? Yesterday, I believe it was my guests, whether Dr. Arthur Kennedy or one of them, actually said that he didn't trust the CID, the Ghana Police Service, to deal with the matter. And he would want a parliamentary probe. Are you saying you've got to the point where you don't think any institution in the country can deal with the problem and we have to go international to sort of draw attention to the problem?
That's why I'm leaning towards. Because who is going to stand up and really look at this, give this what it deserves, how it deserves to be looked at? Look at us already talking about NDC people did it, MPP people did it. And this is where it ends up covered up in the noise and buried. And then we will come back here 2 years later saying the same thing while our communities continue to be pillaged. We can do that. These are crimes against humanity. And there are signs within those communities that all that mercury, all that destruction is beginning to bite in terms of actual cost to human life. So we need to compile all of these things and take it to wherever we can take it. That's not saying that things shouldn't be done at home. I don't trust it. But let everybody in a position of authority with a conscience begin to see that this has gone on for too long. And look, don't sit in Accra and think that, oh, it's a Western region problem or it's a Northern region problem.
It's everywhere.
It is affecting everybody everywhere.
It's everywhere. And even if you look beyond that and you look at sand winning, go to some of our beaches now. People are basically pillaging our beaches as well, taking the sand from. I mean, there are different environmentally hazardous activities going on in our country. People are running amok and destroying our environment. And all of us are going to suffer the consequences, especially posterity. But let me come to you, Nusaf Hussaini, on those same points. Does it matter, or would it matter, if the hunter became the hunted? If Professor Frimpong Boateng was seen to be complicit in a way in what he is accusing others of? And how do you find it that some members of your party, the NDC, you've been speaking against this administration's handling of the matter, but how do you react when members of your own party are also pointed to? Mr. Hussaini.
Well, so I was there. I was a minister. I was given the responsibility together with my colleagues to bring some sanity into the small-scale mining sector. I was given complete and unalloyed support by His Excellency the President John Dramani Mahama. My activities led to the sacking of a district chief executive. I can tell you that members of the government who had reports were complicit were sent letters and warned that they will be arrested. And I have no doubt in my mind that during the period that I was at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, everybody knew, including people in my government, that they will face the consequences if they were apprehended. You see, the law is the law is the law. Governance is about trust. The people must believe, see and believe that you are embarking on a good cause and that you have no personal interest. The cause is for public good. They will support you. I had tremendous support from the small-scale mining sector. Indeed, the then American embassy visited, American ambassador visited me and urged me on. Said I was fighting for the future generation. I was fighting for my country. So I had tremendous support. I extricated myself from getting involved through greed, avarice, in acquiring a concession and engaging in small-scale mining activities. I've thought it would be an egregious abuse of public trust. Having been put in that position as minister and being paid with public resources, I convert public good for my own private good. So no, what we are seeing is totally unacceptable. Totally. That is why the governance architecture of this country is breaking down. Because people no longer have confidence. They don't have trust in politicians. Because it looks like we politicians, when given the authority, are just interested in our own welfare. So there is creeping impunity in this country. If NDC people are engaged in perpetuating an illegality under the Minerals and Mining Act, the fact that they are NDC does not offer them any immunity from prosecution. Now, the impunity with which anybody will work in the mining sector would largely be dependent on how this government has treated people of its own. So, yes, I also think that the report is simply what we describe in law as a confession and avoidance report. Because, yes, from one party is confessing to the issues that came to his attention, personal knowledge, when he was chairman of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Small-Scale Mining. But we also know that during that time, Ekpo Ewusi accused Professor Frimpong Boateng and his son of engaging in illegal small-scale mining. I don't see anywhere in the report that his son's name has been mentioned. So yes, but it's useful. It's useful. Whatever information that has been excluded from the report could be provided to complement the report. You don't throw the report away. You don't throw up. Now, the excavators, in that report, the issue of the excavators is not conclusive. We know that the Minerals and Mining Act has a complete regime underlined of how equipment seized from the mining sector,
right,
engaged in illegal activity is to be dealt with. So, if anybody given the mandate to implement the laws, the Minerals and Mining Act, and ensure sanity in the small-scale mining sector, place those provisions in the Minerals and Mining Act with impunity, that will be an abuse of office. And that person is answerable to that. In fact, the report is a litany of abuses of the Minerals and Mining Act and other laws of this country, environmental protection laws of this country, and regulations. And so, the least any person will be doing will be seeking to ensure the sanctity of the laws of this country and the restoration of confidence in the government machinery to protect the interests and welfare of the people.
All right.
This we are not seeing.
Just before I take your thoughts on the way forward, we have that Shraj petition, which has been put forward by lawyers for Roxanne Nelson, Eche Dafiamekbo, Member of Parliament for South Dai. It's a petition for the investigation of public officials and other named individuals for corruption, conflict of interest, and abuse of public office. For Elizabeth, she says she doesn't believe in the system, not Parliament, not the judiciary, no entity. For you, before I take your final words, do you feel this is in any way a route in which we can address this matter? Just briefly on that, Inusa.
Yeah, I think that the Fiamoko is squarely within its right, and these are public officers. All those mentioned in the report are persons who were being paid from the consolidated fund, and the public officers. And Shiraj, he has the mandate to investigate public officers who are in breach of their fiduciary responsibilities and have engaged in conflict of interest or corruption. And so clearly, and so far, we can say that Shiraj is insulated to some extent from the bastardization that has greeted many state institutions. So it's a very good start.
But Shiraj, like Elizabeth, I'm sure would be quick to point out, is only an advisory body, so to speak. It can proffer, but what it proffers is not what must be adhered to.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Is that not the reality?
I have had opportunity to tell them. For instance, the law, the Constitution provides that a person who has been appointed to a public office has a period within which to file the declaration of assets. If the person fails, refuses, or neglects to file within that context, Shiraj cannot simply say that person has not done it. Shiraj should go to court to enforce the provision. Now, if a person fails to comply with the Constitution, that is another constitutional breach. That should result in the removal or the declaration that that person is otherwise unfit to occupy that office. Because you can't breach the Constitution with impunity and still occupy a position created by the Constitution.
Right.
So we are saying that this church must be proactive and go to court to enforce its decisions.
Okay.
That way, people will take it serious.
All right. I'll be taking your final comments, Elizabeth Inusa, in a short while. Just give me a few more minutes. But we have the petitioner, Member of Parliament for South Dai, Roxanne Nelson, Dafiamekbo, joining the conversation on phone. Mr. Dafiamekbo, a very good morning to you. What is your reaction to the development so far? Just briefly on what Professor Frimpong Boateng has put out, and why this petition? What are you seeking to achieve?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to your viewers, and good morning to my master in Parliament, the Honorable Inusa Hussaini. I was his people under his tutelage. Have blossomed to be who I have become. He's not in Parliament, but anytime I have some difficult matters, he's able to come in handy to assist. Now, all I'm saying is that, and my senior Inusa will agree with me, that between 2017 and 2020, this government came to Parliament to ask for public funds to, as it were, fund the programs and activities of this Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. We expended a lot of public funds just to ensure that this committee, consisting of personnel from this a multifaceted committee, succeeded in fighting the Galamsey menace. And persons like the Honorable Yunusa Hussaini were at the center of activity during the approval process, because he himself had been a Minister of Energy and also a Minister of Environment, Lands and Natural Resources before. And he himself had a task force under his tenure.
Hello?
And he was rebuffed on the floor, but he made his point strongly. In January 2021, government issued a statement to say that it had dissolved this very lofty committee. So monies expended on their work for like 2-3 years gone to waste. But what Frimpong Boateng did was to submit a report a month after that. And this was in March. If I got the day right. He submitted a report to the office of the president. And any person dealing with the office of the president will have to go through the chief of staff. So for government to suggest that the report Frimpong Boateng submitted in his capacity as the head of this committee at the time was in an informal setting to the chief of staff, it's preposterous. A minister of state engaging the chief of staff, who was like the primus inter pares of all ministers, could not be informal. Any discussion between any government appointee and the chief of staff is very formal, especially when there is a when there's a document, a formal document that is exchanging hands. What is?
We seem to be losing you, Roxanne. Hello? Mr. Dafin, can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
All right. Please go ahead then. The connection is a bit tricky, but go ahead with the point you were making.
Frimpong Boateng actually took a formal approach by writing the report of the work of the committee, detailing the activities of every perspective involved in their work, and documenting it, supporting it where relevant, and submitting same to the chief of staff. If anybody was indolent in this matter, it was the office of the president who received the report and slept on it. It took Frimpong Boateng to leak it for us to know the details of this report. So if 7 ministers are now responding to the details, it is way too late. So I am saying that SHRAC should look into this matter because the denials are too many.
As we cap off the conversation, I mean, you've given us a thrust of what the statement says. I would like your final reaction in addition to those of Yunusa Hussaini and Elizabeth Va. But before we get there, fellow Ghanaians, I want us to watch this video from years back when President Akufo-Addo said or stated his position on the fight against Galamsey. Just watch this and tell me whether that is in consonance with what we are seeing now.
You know that the activities that they're involved in are jeopardizing the very survival of our nation. I took the decision that that would be a betrayal of the trust that the Ghanaian people put in me on the 7th of January this year. And as a result, we established this committee within the government to design a policy for us, not just to stop it, to reclaim the land, to let our rivers work again, but also to see how we can figure a way for all these able-bodied young men who are involved in this activity to find an alternative livelihood. So it's a package. It's a package that we have designed to try and bring this menace to a conclusion. I've said it in the cabinet, and perhaps this is the first time I'll be saying it in public. I am prepared to put my presidency on the line on this matter.
And that is our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And there was clapping when he said it. What happened after that? Your final words. I'll start with you, Elizabeth Va. I started the conversation with you. I'll end with you, starting with your closing remarks.
Thank you so much. And thank you to my fellow panelists, Honorable Seni. Thank you for your continued service to Ghana. I do not really, like I continue to say, trust in our organizations to do much about this. But I trust in the people of Ghana. Our president has shown that he doesn't take us seriously. Governments have gone down under circumstances that are less than what we are seeing. We have been, we have been mocked and we have been betrayed. This is not one of those things that we sit in our homes and wriggle our hands and move on to the next story. So every Ghanaian listening right now, let us show that we will not condone this, because like it was said earlier, this is not a crime against just this generation. It is a crime against coming generation of Ghanaians. We have mortgaged our future, we have destroyed our communities, and we can't let this continue. So let's come together. Let's come together and voice this up, come what may. And then the various people in the communities, I keep wondering what and I'm sorry to say, Asante Hene, you have such authority over the people, and every ohene in every region in Ghana. Your stools are more powerful than any 4-year politician. So stand up for once. This is getting too much. How can you preside over people that are being destroyed under your very eyes? The wars that our forefathers fought are different now. Now the wars are being fought on social media, in space, and within your communities. Look at how much destruction the various forests have experienced. And you still sit and watch and dress yourselves up in this whatever it is, and watch your people continue to be helpless. Please stand up. And the communities too, the youth that are the few that have started standing up for their communities, don't despair, don't let go. Don't let go. These politicians and all those, even if your chiefs are condoning in the selling of your homelands, don't just sit there and watch them, because your future and that of your children are at stake. We are going to do whatever we can, especially on the international front. We're trying to gather as much of the information, including what has been compiled by Professor Frimpong Boakye, and all the reportage that Erastus and many of you good people in the media are doing, and see what we can do with this. But let's see some action at home, please. Let's see some action, because let's not just watch, talk about this, and in a week's time, move on to the next topic.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining the conversation. It's always, always, always so good having you join the conversation with your depth and everything else that you bring to bear. Thank you. Mr. Hussaini, final words, briefly.
So, Elizabeth, I'm just thinking that we should escalate this conversation. We should take environmental justice on the international level. The level of degradation is clearly catastrophic. It's totally unacceptable. Our governments can be brought, can be held responsible.
Mr. Hussaini, I was saying, when you say on the international level, which institutions are you looking at?
The institutions which are interested in protecting the environment. Now, today we are being told that we can cut down and defoliate the Amazon. The Amazon is the lungs of the world. Today we are destroying the lungs of Ghana. I mean, we will not be having good air to breathe. I mean, people, the activities of galamseyers will not only affect the people of Ghana, will have repercussions on other countries and the world environment. And so clearly, people must be held responsible. And I think that we should escalate it. I also support, and I've said that civil community action is very important. But the difficulty with civil community action is that, I mean, almost everybody has now been compromised. The chiefs are leading in the corrupt activities of galamseyers. Some citizens within communities are part of it. MPP exploited that by coming up with community mining, which I agree with Elizabeth, is another form of galamsey and distraction. And so let's find a way, let's reinvent ourselves. Let's find a way to stop this carnage. Government has betrayed or revealed a remarkable lack of commitment to fighting the illegal small-scale mining or mining activities in this country. And so, clearly, it is left to us as a people. And if we don't do anything as a people, the impunity with which the mining activities is going on in communities by illegal miners will perpetuate itself. And it will not matter whether it is NDC that is in power or MPP that is in power. People will act with impunity. Let's hold governments accountable.
Right.
The officers, agents of governments that are complicit in these activities must know that they can't run away from the long arm of the law.
Just to clarify, were you saying that the chiefs are leading the destruction of our environment? Is that the line? Is that what you said?
Yes. But you don't need evidence. You don't need any evidence.
No. I just wanted you to repeat. Yes, I didn't get that clear.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
So let me give you why I said so. Ofinsohini, when I met the chiefs as Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, the late Ofinsohini said, Inusa, my son, it's true, it's the chiefs. Because you can't sit in your father's place, and you allow this to go on in your area. So if the chiefs don't tolerate it, it can happen.
All right.
The Ofinsohini told me that.
Okay. Unfortunately, he's not with us to be able to corroborate what you're saying or otherwise.
So he said, come to Ofinso and see whether there is illegal activity going on.
Right. Mr. Hussaini, we're grateful for your time. Do we have Roxanne on the line? Mr. Dafiamekpo?
Yes, I'm here.
Final words, please, and we shall wrap the conversation.
I thank your other two panelists for their contributions this morning. This is a matter that is very dear to the heart of the nation. So my simplest request is for SHRAC to look into the conduct of all public officers during the tenure of the work of this committee. So it's that simple. Whatever they decide, I will abide by it.
Thank you so much. You've heard on this conversation Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo. He is Member of Parliament for South Dine. He has petitioned SHRAG to take action on this matter for those who are pointed to in that report by Professor Frimpong Boateng. You've also heard Elizabeth Va, who is Executive Director, Environmental Advocacy Group, and former Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Inusa Hussaini. You know, at this point in time, I'm going to take a breather and I'm going to take a drink. And what I drink is Awake purified drinking water. Now, this is premium purified drinking water, and it's treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. Of course, your health is your wealth, so you have to be careful what you put in. Now, in terms of the sizes, depending on what you want, whether for kids or for adults, you could get the 330 or 500 milliliter bottles. You could also get 750 milliliters or 1.5 liters, depending on what you're going for. But if you want something bigger for maybe your home or your office, you could actually contemplate getting the 19-liter jar bottles for those places. So all you need to do now is drink Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. Choose a bottle of Awake Purified Drinking Water today and get quality, top-notch hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle, every last bottle you buy, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. And that, for me, I say it every day, is heartwarming, because just as with cancer, for those who have cardiovascular issues and all of that, a lot of these people cannot afford the treatment. And so by purchasing a bottle of Awake Purified Drinking Water, you aid such people who may need treatment but not have the funding for it. It's another quality product by Kasapreko Company Limited. If you want to purchase in bulk, this is the number to call: 0262 351 251. 0262 351 251. This advert is FDA approved. Now, Bernice Abubeidu Lanza will be coming your way next. We'll also be talking about World Malaria Day. And of course, we're looking at what we have been doing in Ghana, what the different dynamics are. That and more coming your way after the break. Well, right before we get talking about malaria, let's go to Ogbojo, where some members of that community have been complaining about a very erratic power supply. My colleague, Mamiesi Nyameche Thompson, is standing by to tell us what exactly they've been sharing with her. Mamiesi, if you can hear me, what exactly is going on in Ogbojo?
Some residents here. All right, so Benjamin, if you can also hear me, I am at Ogbojo, part of the Adenta community, and I'm with some residents here who have a very peculiar problem. Their issue is that they are experiencing erratic power supply for years now, and it is so bad that they can go without light for more than 36 hours, and they are not getting reasonable or even reasonable excuses from the ECG as to why this is happening. Well, I wouldn't want to be the one telling their problems for them. I have them here to tell us what is going on. With me on my right hand side is Julius. Julius, you have a very big problem with the ECG. What really is your problem?
My problem is whenever the weather changes, the lights goes off. Even when there's a little storm, the lights goes off. And we can just go off for like 24 hours. Like Sunday, we had it the whole day, the whole night. Monday, we had light off. Later when it came in the evening. And sometimes when you call the call center don't even know that we have light off here. So they will tell you, they will talk to their engineers and find out what's been the problem with our area. You call back again, they wouldn't give you any answer.
But really, how long has this been going on for?
This has been going on even before Dumso. And so like this area is like, we are still experiencing Dumso. Yes.
So you were telling me a while ago, moments ago, that your lights were off yesterday. How long was it off for?
For that one, for like 2 hours. 2 hours, yeah. It was from six to 8 something, then it came. But for the Sunday, it was the whole day, like throughout the day and the night. So we had it. The light came on Monday around 9. Then they took it 6 p.m. and they on it around 8. Yes.
All right. So Julius is not the only one here. We have quite a number of them around. Hello, sir. What's your name?
I'm Hope, please. Hope.
Hope, what is your problem with the ECG? I mean, I know the lights are not stable, but how does it affect your lifestyle?
Concerning let's say the gadgets we use, sometimes you are not in the house. Before you come back, you see the whole thing. It's like you do everything, you can't even use anything. Sometimes some of us to use medicals, the one they used to put in the fridge for some time before you can take. You come, it is also spoiled. You have to go and buy again. And you can know the situation now too. There is no money like that. Your things in the fridge, you have to buy a whole set. It's disturbing. It's more than 6 years. It comes off, go anytime. You call and call, nobody will come. You will be there to come back again.
But what really is the issue? Is it an issue of your meters? What type of meter do you use anyway?
I use prepaid.
Oh, you use the prepaid. Yeah. So you have the card, right? Yeah. Is it a problem with the card or what?
No. It's from the main line. Because when it comes like that, it's not your everything will be working exactly. Sometimes they even come, you tell them, they tell us, oh, when we go to the office, we will report. Finish.
Interesting. I have a teacher here too who says it's affecting his life. Please, your name?
I'm Suleiman Abdurrahman.
Suleimana, what you teach?
Yes, please.
So you obviously need the lights, especially in the evenings, to plan your curriculum, teaching, exactly. and stuff like that. How has it altered your plans?
ECG, I've been in this neighborhood since '93, and I can say this is a problem we've been facing since then. You call their lines, and then they give them scripts to read. You can call 2-3 people at the same time, then they read the same thing, that either is just transformer or it is something else.
And you use the postpaid?
When my dad was alive, he requested for prepaid meters so that the house can have separate meters, because the bills that come is too much.
How much are you?
A house of 9 or 10, but the bill comes 3,000, 4,000 cedis. And you ask, is it a factory? Or what at all do we use there? Just one fridge, but these are the bills that come. So, madam, if ECG can do something about it, it will help the whole neighborhood and to help us as teachers and other professions that use the lights in order to do our work effectively.
I have one lady here. She had to actually, because of this interview, report at work that she will be coming in late. So let me quickly speak to her so she can go back to work. Hello, darling. This morning I was talking to you and you're telling me your concerns. You use a postpaid meter, right?
Yeah.
How does this affect you?
To be honest, it's a very dicey, crazy situation we have down here. Okay, now my household has about 4 people in the house, and every month I pay like 7,000 cedis.
7,000.
7,000 Ghana cedis.
What equipment do you use?
Just a freezer and then 4 fan. I don't even have an air condition. Now my main issue is the fact that, listen, there should be quality of service. Okay, I should get my money's worth. You get it? So if you bring me that bill, and then that bill is ridiculously, exponentialized. Goodness, financially, the country is in turmoil. And then you bring me that kind of bill to pay, but you don't give me life. Seriously speaking, it's against my right. My right to good and quality service. PLC needs to come in. I don't know what they're doing though, but it needs to come in. You're aiming to protect the right of the customer. What is he doing? I'm getting all emotional because it's too much for me. We didn't have light. I have kids in the house. They gotta go to school on Monday. I gotta go to work. There is no light to air my clothes. Now seriously, and then I have pet. The most annoying part is the fact that they wouldn't even bring you the bill. First, you know how much you owe. But yes, so they had the gut to come and disconnect you and say, oh, madam, you owe this kind of money, but then they don't mean the bill.
So is yours an issue of disconnection, or that you've paid your bills and you're still having power outage?
Mine is both of them. Mine is the fact that, first of all, pay their mandate, pay their act, pay their condition of service, pay what the law says they should do. You have to serve your client a bill at the end of the month. Because I'm using postpaid. Right? But yet, you don't make me no bill. Not. Then you just come and say, oh, you don't pay bill. So I'm disconnecting. How much do I owe? Then you be like, oh, I don't know, but I'm actually estimating it to 7,000.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, Benjamin, these are the concerns of the residents here at Ogbojo, near the Adenta area. But these are the things they are saying. We need really to get an explanation from the Electricity Company of Ghana as to why they're still experiencing erratic power supply. So from here at Ogbojo, I am Mami Sinyamiche Thompson.
Hello there, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for staying with us here on the AM show. I'm Bernice Abubedu-Lansa. Earlier you saw my colleague Benjamin Akakpo engage in a guest on the issues of illegal mining and the latest on Professor Frimpong Boateng's report that found its way into the media space. Well, it's now time for us to talk about malaria. Yes, findings from the 2022 Ghana Demographic and Health Survey shows that malaria prevalence in children aged 6 to 59 months, that's just about 5 years, is 8.6% according to microscopy results, and the prevalence in rural areas is about 3 times that of urban areas. In Greater Accra is 2.0%. That region has the lowest prevalence, followed by the Western North and the Volta regions. And this morning, I'll be engaging my guests on the goal, which is to ensure that we are malaria-free. What exactly is causing the numbers that we are seeing, and how can we deal with that situation? And let me welcome in studio, I have David Delatham Tete, right? Pharmacist with Bliss GVS Pharma. They've been doing a lot of work in that aspect, and he'll be shared with us what their goal and ambition is. I've also got Dr. Fred Adomako Boateng, who is the Bono East Director of Health. We also have Dr. Peter Tichi-Pepra, Director Field Operations at the Ghana Statistical Service. And because we want to kickstart based on the statistics that we have, let me start with you first, Dr. Peter Tichi-Pepra. What exactly is causing these numbers we are seeing? Why do we have the prevalence rate in the rural areas, you know, at such a high rate compared to urban areas?
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Tichi-Pepra. Did you hear me, please?
Yeah, could you please repeat your question?
I was asking what exactly is accounting for the numbers that we are seeing in terms of malaria prevalence in urban and rural areas.
Well, the why question will be difficult to answer. We all know that Ghana is a malaria endemic zone. The National Malaria Control Program has put in measures to reduce or possibly eradicate malaria in Ghana. There are so many interventions, including encouraging mothers or pregnant women and children under 5 to sleep under mosquito nets. The next question we need to ask ourselves is, do they really adhere to that in their homes? You can really advise, but whatever practice that they carry out in our various rooms is a bit difficult to track. So I don't know whether one can conclude that the rural area people are not really adhering to it, or mosquitoes are more prevalent in the rural areas compared to the urban, because if you look at the breeding of mosquitoes, usually bushes and stagnant water contributes to that. So if we are to do some guesswork, one can really link to what I've just said. But the study didn't look at why. We rather measured or looked at the prevalence. That's why we've got to know that of rural is relatively higher than urban.
Statistics can you share with us with regards to your study on malaria prevalence?
The study, in fact, is on 2022 demographic and health survey, of which malaria was a component. Even though the main results is not yet out, we try to extract that of the malaria due to this day, that's today, being a special day so far as malaria or World Malaria Day is concerned. So from what we have seen, at the national level, malaria prevalence among children under 5, that's those between 6 months and 59 months, in terms of malaria parasites, of which the blood sample was tested at the lab, gave us a figure of 8.6% compared to the previous ones that Ghana recorded. So one can say that malaria prevalence is dropping. That's malaria prevalence among children is dropping.
Good news, right? Okay. I'll have you hold on. Let me bring in Dr. Adomako Boateng. He is in the Bono East region, the Director of Health there. So share your story with us. We've seen that generally there's a decline, but when we compare the rural and urban areas seem to still be struggling with dealing with malaria. Tell us what the situation is in the Bono East and what you're doing differently.
Okay, so basically, the figures are showing the prevailing environmental conditions when you compare the rural and the urban areas. If you really look at the way that the parasite is transmitted from the mosquito to man, and then looking at where the breeding sites for mosquitoes especially, if you look at a rural area, you will see where the empty cans are just littered around. You have a lot of bushy areas. You have a lot of water is collected around almost everywhere. And because of that, typically, you have a lot of breeding sites for the mosquitoes. And since you have a lot of breeding sites, you are going to have, in terms of numbers, more in the rural communities. We can also look at the way the rural community, the children play compared to the urban. You see, the rural communities is likely to have a lot of children playing out as compared to the urban areas, where you have a lot of the children indoor and then sleeping under other mosquito nets. And then even when we have to use the mosquito nets, if you compare the setting up in the rural and the urban, you see that it's more feasible in the urban as compared to the rural areas and the other things that you do. So you will see that the conditions that favor the breeding sites for mosquitoes, and therefore the numbers are higher in the rural areas as compared to the urban areas. In fact, if you look across the country, some of the districts and cities that are doing very, very well are the very urbanized areas where the transmission of mosquitoes are low. So in terms of the reason why the rural areas are having much prevalence as compared to the urban area, you just look at the transmission cycle, and then you see in some parts of the rural areas, it's not a hard thing for children to come out and sleep even out at night, exposing them. In terms of other things that people will use, money, I mean, people in town can buy repellents so that when they're even going out, they can apply repellent, and that will repel the mosquito from biting them.
Doc, could poverty be, because I mean, we don't have the why, because Doc just told us that that wasn't studied, but could poverty be a reason why we're seeing these numbers?
You cannot exclude that. I mean, if somebody has built a very nice house as compared to somebody who is not having that, in terms of the windows, in terms of the doors, even having a mosquito net or nets around your house, you will need money to do that. So we have a lot of factors contributing. In fact, poverty is one and you know, the poverty will trigger a lot of, cascade a lot of reactions, therefore that will lead to us having that. Even to the extent that if you have money, you know that you can even use treated nets for your net and all those. So poverty is also one of them. I mean, poverty is implicated in almost every disease that is known.
Doc, I'll come back to you. Let me come to the studio now. World Malaria Day this year, the theme is invest, innovate, and implement. And I see that Bliss GVS is doing a lot in that regard. And David Daladem Tete is here to share that with us. Why are you so interested in malaria as an organization, and what have you done to help us achieve zero malaria?
So Bliss GVS Pharma is interested in malaria, particularly because Ghana is over the years been suffering from the malaria burden. It is actually reducing productivity in the country, and we see the need to help combat this disease because we want to improve lives, we want to improve people's health, and we want to see to it that the productivity in the country increases because we are trying to build a better Ghana for the next generation.
And when you say you consider this important, what are the practical things that you have done as an organization to help us achieve zero malaria?
Okay, so Bliss GVS Pharma started this initiative called the Act for Africa initiative. And this initiative is to help reduce the malaria burden, thereby donating medicines to some facilities and also creating awareness by educating health professionals and some stakeholders across the country.
I saw a story recently about some places you went to, the whole teaching hospital, the Tamale teaching hospital. Yes. You've been in quite some areas across the country. But, you know, when it comes to pharmaceuticals and medication, people are sometimes skeptical because of all the theories. You have just said that this is important to you, you're donating free medication, but what's in it for you? What is it that is pushing Bliss Pharma to make such huge investments?
So it's part of our corporate social responsibility as a company, you know. So what we are doing is our responsibility, or to say our obligation as a company, and it's a way of us giving back to the community for receiving us, coming to Ghana and helping them to have free access to medications, improve their lives daily.
Right. So Bliss GVS produces medication, right?
Yes.
And we recently heard about the Oxford vaccine, and everybody is excited because, you know, I recently had malaria, and I thought it was COVID because it knocked me down. I have never had malaria like that before, and when I went to the doctor and they said, let's test for malaria, I said, are you sure it's not COVID? Because I was cold, I had a sore throat, I had a terrible headache. And so malaria is really serious. And if you're not aware, malaria still kills people, unfortunately. That's the sad truth. People die from malaria. Yeah. So hearing about the vaccines excited me. Obviously it's for children, but at least it shows the level of improvement or the level of achievement we've gotten to as a people in terms of dealing with malaria and eradicating it. Is Bliss GVS doing any work in that regard, looking for long-term medical solutions? Is that something that interests your company?
It's an interesting venture, like you mentioned. My company is more focused on producing medicines to help reduce the burden. So we are pioneering the production of anti-malarials, and we are pretty much doing well so far. And our anti-malarials are helping the mass. So we are, for now, like I said, focusing on the medicine production.
Okay, when you decide to produce vaccines, let me know.
Definitely.
But Dr. Adomako Boateng, again, recently we heard about Stephen Sai, okay, and everybody was wondering, what is this? You know, is this going to wipe us out? And we had we had it on the front pages, you know, these mosquitoes that had migrated from Asia were now seen here in Damsuman. There were concerns about it being aggressive, not, you know, responsive to the insecticides that we have. Are you concerned that this will derail our efforts, or from where you sit and from the information you have, do you believe that we are doing something, you know, proactive so that we don't have, you know, a decline in the positive strides that we've made?
Thank you. So just to take it, we have a lot of intervention.
Hello, Doc. Oh, too bad we lost Doc there. Okay.
Interventions that we are having as a country.
Okay.
So we can even start. I can mention some of them that we have when it comes to malaria. This to tie to the team, and I'll come to the latest mosquito or the new kid on the block. So we have, even for what will target the mosquito itself. I'll come. So what do we do to target the mosquito? One, you can target them from not multiplying or breeding. So you can attack the source. And that is where these water bodies will come in. And we know that the mosquito breed that we're dealing with initially was breeding in fresh water. Now, the latest one that we have now can also breed in dirty waters. So that is what is adding on. So if all your interventions initially was targeted towards only fresh water, now you have to make a room for dirty water. And that comes back to sanitation and hygiene, then environmental. So you see that though it's the latest one, it used to be in Southeast Asia, now it's coming. The way that we will have to address it is not quite different from what we already know. And so the other one is also when you use the barrier method so that you are not bitten by the mosquitoes. In that case, we are talking about the insecticide, long-lasting insecticide treated nets and all those. So the first thing that we will have to do as a country is looking at the breeding sites to target the vector that is already there, and also to prevent the target from the vector from getting to us. So we just have to strengthen what we were doing. They come back to behavior. Initially, when people were giving the mosquito nets, people were giving all reasons why they wouldn't want to sleep under the mosquito net. This is the time that we really have to revisit sleeping under the mosquito net, because if you really do that, then we'll be able to pick it very quick and be able to prevent us from getting the disease. So these are the things that the National Malaria Elimination, actually it's not National Malaria Elimination Program. They have moved from control, and I think at appropriate time, the team will talk about it. So it's no more about controlling malaria now. It will come to a point whereby you don't even have any transmission of the plasmodium that causes the problem. So that's what we are thinking about. So if you look at the team for this year, when they talk about this is the time to invest, time to deliver zero malaria, time to invest, innovate, and implement. What are we supposed to innovate or invest in? Invest in research, long-lasting treated nets. We invest in research that we can even make the mosquito sterile. You know, in other countries are doing that.
Right.
These are all research that we can think about as we invest in malaria and the time to deliver zero malaria. Look, if the Plasmodium parasite, which is in the mosquito, is eliminated, you don't have any transmission. The reason why we get malaria is that it's not the plan or the purpose of the mosquito to give you. It's coming for blood. It's just coming for the blood. So it is coming in attempt to take blood, it will give you the Plasmodium and then consequences of its action. So if you can clear the Plasmodium parasite in all mosquitoes, it can bite 300 times. If you don't have the parasite in them, you can't get malaria. So it's time for us to invest. And you know, it's not only us, the philanthropists, the global community, all because malaria, the burden of malaria extends more than the disease, the social and other financial implications. So if you ask me what NICET is bringing on board, no, it's for us to change our behavior to mitigate them. One thing that we also know that, look, if at some conditions, the malaria parasite or the cannot change from one state to another based on the condition. I don't want to go into that. But right. One, it can do at high temperature. What do we do? There are ways that we can address some of these issues. So whatever this new kit is coming on, we have the arsenals to deal with them.
Can't we just, Doc, I remember in a conversation a friend said, why do we even have mosquitoes? Can't we just make them go extinct? Like, can't we just do away with them? Because, I mean, isn't that an easier route? I'm just thinking, yeah? Doc, isn't that, because we're investing so much money, you're just talking about research, you're talking about, making them sterile. And I came across a study somewhere in Asia where they're doing that. They're sending the sterile mosquitoes to go out and then, exterminate or deal with the ones that carry the Plasmodium. So if eventually there will be mosquitoes, but they won't carry Plasmodium that will give us malaria eventually. But can't we just make them vanish? Isn't that possible?
So let's innovate. Let's invest in this research. How do we go about it? Because when it comes to malaria, it's not only Ghana that we should be thinking about. The mosquitoes don't have any boundaries or barriers. Surrounding countries, the sub-Saharan Africa and all those, we all have to come together because, mind you, look, this mosquito that we are talking about, where did it come from? It's coming from Southeast Asia. And unknown to most of us, it's not only the Anopheles plus mosquito that causes the female Anopheles. They have different breeds. If you go in, there are a lot of different mosquitoes that we cannot see with our naked eye. They are all there, even across ecological zones in the country. It's not all prevailing, it's not only one species that's the dominant species. So how can you invest, innovate, make sure that the Plasmodium that is causing it, can we eliminate that Plasmodium so that the mosquito can bite us 100 times, we don't get the malaria? These are all the things that we can think about. If you want to spray and kill all the mosquitoes, do you know the other things that you can, other harm that you can do to the environment and disturb the ecosystem? So all these we will have to think through research and then make a lot of investments. It's very key, and we have to really make a lot of investments to innovate. One of the things that we do for pregnant women is also to give them anti-malaria. Consider in some time so that they don't get the burden. We are doing a lot so that people who are high risk of getting the malaria are.
Doc froze again, unfortunately. But David, when I was talking about making mosquitoes go extinct, I saw you smile. Isn't that another way we can just deal with malaria once and for all? Yes.
It's another way to deal with malaria. I came across a research last month that was talking about this same issue. And the research was saying that they are not going to go all out in eradicating the mosquito because they are afraid of what they might create when there is no mosquito in the... Are mosquitoes important? They play a part
in the entire ecosystem.
Exactly.
They have a role to play. Okay.
Yes, they play a part in the ecosystem. So the researchers are also not very keen on going all out to eradicate it. They want to just, I mean, some people also use this as a venture to generate revenue, you know, so whilst they are into the research into helping reduce the malaria burden, they are trying to find what they can create to combat that or just curb that or just overshadow this whole malaria issue. So it's an interesting thing to look into. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Let me just wrap up with Doc on that, Dr. Tichi Papa. So, Doc, I mean, you've been listening to the conversation. Basically, the research is what you shared with us earlier. But what are your general thoughts on malaria and our steps in achieving zero malaria?
Thank you very much. I think I've listened to the discussions happening across, and one thing that I can say is more of the intervention. Maybe there is a need for us to intensify our awareness creation on the use of treated mosquito nets in our homes. I think it will help us a lot. And there is one aspect that we maybe I would say we have overlooked. You know, we have refuse dump sites in almost every locality, but that of the rural areas, I would say, are most often closer to the settlements. So if we see malaria prevalence relatively higher in rural areas than the urban, then one intervention I think we can put in place as a country is to also target such sites and spray the area on a regular basis. Possibly it can eradicate the breeding of mosquitoes at such areas, where definitely indirectly would have positive impacts on the reduction of malaria prevalence. So I would touch on this too, and I think if we add the other interventions to these, we can make a headway as a country to eradicate malaria, possibly 2030 that we have set as a target. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And looking at the statistics, Dr. Adomako Boateng, this was a story done by the GNA on the 20th of January this year, 2023, and they were sharing malaria statistics from 2022. Now, Ghana recorded 3,745,398 malaria infections. These were confirmed ones. It was from January to September 2022. And this is data coming from the National Malaria Elimination Program. Unfortunately, 120 of that number died. But it was a dip in the earlier year, from the earlier year 2021, 196 people died. It appears that we're doing more in preventing deaths from malaria, but infections are still very high. 3.7 million, that's almost 4 million. That's quite a high number, isn't it?
It is.
So it appears that our efforts are all targeted at, preventing people from dying from the disease and not necessarily preventing people from getting infected. I agree, in 2021, the number was about 4 million. Now it is 3.7, also a reduction. But how do we ensure that infections also reduce significantly?
So, and that's the discussions that we are making. But I will have to emphasize now that nobody should die from malaria.
Right.
Nobody should die from malaria in this contemporary world. Look, a research that has gone into malaria, the effective medicines that have gone into. You remember, it came from chloroquine to artemisinin to artemisinin-based combination therapy. There are lot and lot of drugs. The question is, how do we manage the fever? We'll come to that. I will address the question. And access. So why should people die from malaria when there are effective drugs? One, maybe late reporting. It's possible. We will have to break these cases down to look at who they time, and it's basically the under 5 and where they are coming from. So apart from what has gone in, and that's why it's important that we innovate and implement. The innovation comes from the geographical area that you are in. The regions are not the same. Greater Accra, Ashanti region, Central, Bunu East. So the evidence is clear. But if you don't innovate in the implementation of the evidence wherever you are, then you are going to have these deaths that we are talking about. So nobody should die. And therefore, it's important that wherever you are, you have to innovate. We shouldn't leave this only to the health workers. All of us should come to pay our part. Because if you are living around, as we said, places where you have a bushy area, creating an environment conducive atmosphere for more breeding sites, then it's likely that you are going to have it. And not only that, even there are tested methods of preventing people from getting it. So how come though we have prevented methods from people from getting it, we are still getting the bite, and we are still. It means that there is small behavioral issue over here, attitude that we will have to address them. So the control, and that's why I believe that the National Malaria Elimination Program want to move away from the control, and so that we eliminate, and that is the catch, eliminate that malaria, that plasmodium parasite. So why should people be dying from malaria? No, in this time, it's not acceptable. But we have to know that we have a lot of vulnerable groups, especially pregnant women and children and our five. They are at risk. So if you see, we have a lot of intervention. And I will tell you that in Moree, we have one intervention that we are doing in 5 of the districts, which we call the seasonal malaria chemo prophylaxis, where we give every child under 5 years Fansida, June, July, August, September, and we are thinking of increasing it to October, where we give them drug that we call Fansida and Amida, clear, because at that area, at that season, because of the rainy season, you have a lot of breeding sites and you have a lot of children getting it. So there are a lot of interventions at play. And the whole idea is that you prevent people from even getting the malaria. But once you get the malaria, we have a lot of tested drugs. People can start the drugs when they are feeling okay, oh, I'm done. And then they don't continue. So there are a lot of factors that will contribute.
Too bad we lost Doc again. But I mean, we're just wrapping up the conversation shortly. But when he spoke about medication, then I perfectly appreciate why Bliss GVS and others like you are here to help in the production of medication to help us deal with malaria. But he spoke about something about people not finishing medications and how over time, I know it's with antibiotics. I don't know if it works for malaria medication as well, because I have learned that when you take antibiotics over time and you don't finish your course, they begin, I mean, the bacteria begins to develop a resistance, right? So after a while, you may, and it doesn't affect you just as an individual, right? Because when we are a lot of people, then it means eventually the bacteria that is transferred from me to you to others through whatever means become resistant to the medication, and then we can't deal with it with the known medication, and we have to develop new medication. So on that score, what would your advice be to people who patronize your medication? What is the proper way of taking medicine, and what is the proper way of reporting illness as well? Because he touched on that.
I would want to start with this, that different people experience different symptoms when it comes to malaria. But then that's notwithstanding, there are general symptoms that everybody will present with. So once you start presenting with these symptoms, make sure you just report to the community pharmacy, get tested. It may or may not be malaria. And once it's malaria, they start you on the treatment. You know, he mentioned something very interesting. I would also wanted to add a little bit on that. Easy access to medicines is also very important, because what is the point if I present with these symptoms and I don't have easy access to the medications? So that is where we have the Act for Africa initiative running. And so we want to make medicines easily accessible to everybody, so that once you present with the symptoms, you can easily get it from any community pharmacy or over-the-counter medication, over-the-counter shops or chemical shops, and then start getting your treatment.
Thank you so much for your time here this morning. David Tete is a pharmacist with Bliss GVS, and they produce Lonat, right?
Yes,
Lonat malaria medication, and they've been doing a lot of work across the country distributing medicines. I know about the Tamale Teaching Hospital, I know about the Ho Teaching Hospital, and a couple others, and that's why this morning we're having that conversation with them about achieving zero malaria. It's World Malaria Day. The theme is invest, innovate, and implement. Earlier, you heard Dr. Fred Atomako Boateng. He was making such a salient point. Unfortunately, the internet. Okay, he's back, Doc. So just in a minute, you were talking about how people treat fevers for malaria. I'll just give you a minute to do that because it's important. David just spoke about timely reporting of illnesses, and the most important one, get tested first, okay? Test for malaria before you start any medication. But Doc, briefly on how people treat fevers, right?
So for now, National Malaria Elimination Program, one of the things that we have done across the country, we have what we call rapid diagnostic tests. It's in almost every chemical shop format. So anytime you think you have malaria, if you think you have malaria, walk into them, any of them, and let them test you. Because the fever can be due to anything. So if you really think you have malaria, walk into any of them, and then once you are tested, if it's not malaria, please don't treat malaria. Because of a lot of interventions that National Malaria Elimination Program and the government has put in place. If the fever, you are having a fever, and the rapid diagnostic test is saying negative, don't think it's malaria. Don't say, I know this malaria, this is my malaria. No. They have moved away from that. So that's the key thing that I will talk about. That any fever that you think is malaria, wherever you have access to test, please take it. And drugs are also available almost across everywhere. If you don't have access and maybe a history has been taken and you think this is malaria, complete your medication. Complete your medication. Because for most of us who are more than 5 years, we have what we call partial immunity to malaria. It's very highly unlikely for us to go on to the complicated malaria, which is severe. Once you take your medicines, you are okay with that. So that is how you have to take fever. And it's important because we know nowadays a lot of diseases are coming. And almost every disease will present with fever. Almost every disease will present with general body weakness, headache. So in your mind, you think you'll be dealing with malaria. All you know is something else. That's why it's important that let's test all the fevers as much as possible before you treat for malaria. Let's invest in malaria because it's time for us, for all of us. I know people for 20 years, they have not gotten malaria. 20 years, they have not treated malaria. So zero malaria is possible for all of us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fred Atomako Boateng. And when you were talking about presenting with similar symptoms, I just remembered my situation when I thought I had COVID, but instead it was malaria. It was terrible. I think I had COVID once, but the malaria was worse. I don't know where I picked that malaria from. I don't know what kind of malaria it was, but since that day, if I see a mosquito, I kill the mosquito with everything in my heart. Anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Fred Atomako Boateng, for joining us this morning. And thank you, David Deladem Tete. He is a pharmacist with Bliss GVS Pharma. They're producers of Lonat, and they've been doing a lot of work in helping us achieve zero malaria. They've been doing the Act for Africa as well. So thank you, Bliss GVS, for all that you do. And also, let me show my appreciation to Dr. Peter Techi Pepra, Director Field of Operations Ghana Statistical Service, who shared the statistics with us. That was our launch pad for the discussion. Well, it's now time to get interactive with you. Benjamin Akakpo joins me shortly. Do stay. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. Oh, you see, I just wanted to swap the papers.
Talk of caught in the act.
So, because I was interested in the story on the front.
In flagrante delicto. Just accept your consent. All right. Our apologies for that. It's okay.
Right.
I repent.
Okay, so
I repent of my mischief.
Yeah. So today has been an interesting one. We just ended that conversation on malaria, and for me, the catch is what Dr. Fred Atumako-Boateng says. Nobody must die of malaria. I get really sad when I hear that people have died and it was from malaria, and I'm like, okay. I know there are complications and there are types of malarias like you read, but those ones, even the numbers told you, are very...
But there's something in there, lest I forget. There are some people, I hear the blood groupings. There are some that are more resistant to malaria. I don't know whether it's one of the B categories. You know, we all have our resistance to certain things and others not so much.
Okay.
And for such people, they may not even feel it when maybe with your blood group, you would immediately start feeling it after a few days. It would take a lot of time. And by that time, the level of the parasites in them is, you know, sometimes it's all about how much it accumulates in you. And that is what can eventually kill you.
Okay.
So I would just suggest that when you start feeling a certain way, nowadays we have COVID, now I hear there's another COVID strain, Arcturus or something, that is just a breath. So when you feel something, don't think it is normal, or I'll just go to the pharmacy and buy something.
Sometimes that's our problem. We like to prescribe medication for ourselves when we think we have a certain disease. That's dangerous. Okay, just go to the hospital or go to the pharmacy, get a rapid test done. Right now, COVID test kits are sold all over the place. You can get one, administer it yourself. I did one. A relative of mine had COVID, and I did it. It's quite uncomfortable, but you know, I put the swab in there, and then I tested, and it was positive.
Don't remind me of that thing.
Sorry
whether it's the oral swab or the nasal one.
It's uncomfortable, but it will save you eventually. So please, don't self-medicate. We can achieve zero malaria. We have a first caller from Pokwase, is it? Hello? Bronx?
Hello?
From Pokwase? Hi, let's hear you, please.
Okay. All that I want to say is that the seemingly silence from the president is not convincing to us, the citizens. Okay? We know that he has preview of all that is happening. And so when he's silent and thinks that we the citizens are being fooled, that's not the case. We know that he's aware of everything. He should come out and say something about what is happening. He should come out and say something. That's all that we want. Okay, Dr. Frimpong Boateng has a case, or he doesn't have a case, or whatever he's saying. Let the president tell us something. Something. We want to hear something. That's all I want to say this morning.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, Benjamin. So people are actually concerned about the Professor Frimpong Boateng report. I was really disturbed by that front page story about Major Mahama, who died in a very gruesome manner.
Yeah.
I remember engaging his wife, and it's not a pleasant thing, Benjamin. I mean, you wouldn't even wish that on your enemy, the way he was killed.
Yeah.
You know.
This was a mob. He was lynched.
Yeah, he was lynched.
Unfortunately.
Lynched, and oh, goodness. I mean, so just reading that and linking it to that makes me feel like, wow.
And I was saying this morning as I engaged my guests that all these actions have spin-off effects. And it led, if this is to be taken as the gospel truth, to the death of someone's father, someone's son. You know? Well, we have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. From
Hello, what's your name, please?
Kennedy Tia from Valvale.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, when you look at this, there is no hope for the next generation. Water bodies, forest reserves are being depleted. The president seems to protect every single act of illegality since he assumed office in 2017. It's very sad. There is no department in this government turning out to something else. There were high hopes. We are the president. I want to urge us to hold on and give hope that there is hope in it. And I want to say good morning to my boss, Captain parliamentary candidate for Wale constituency, and our incoming MP. Good morning to him, and he is the rescuer for Wale constituency. Thank you very much
for sharing your thoughts there. Please, when we call, let's stay away from the politics and the greetings. That's why when those messages are shot to me in the course of the news review, I never read them. Greetings to this person, greetings to that person. We try to stay away from all that politics. So if you do call in, just state your case and let's get a move on from there.
And Benjamin, on the one who called earlier, raising concerns about the silence of the president on this matter, I don't know if that person wanted to hear the president himself, but we know that there's been a response from the presidency, basically ravishing the claims by Professor Frimpong Boateng. So that's just to state as fact that has happened. But I don't know if that person was hoping to hear the president himself. Mr. Mensah is calling us from Trosako. Hello, good morning to you, sir.
Hey, my dear, how are you?
I'm good, thanks for asking. Hope you are too. Let's hear you, please.
Okay, yes. Just my little, contribution towards the whole thing, right? I was a little bit, angry that the parliament, our parliament, have the audacity to call for an emergency, meeting just because they want to, go for a loan, whereby we have this kind of magnitude of disaster on our hands. And it doesn't seem to me that Ghana today, all what we care is about money. This issue here we're dealing with is going to go on for generation and a generation and a generation. We don't seem to understand the magnitude of the issue here. All what we're thinking about, the parliament is calling for emergency just for them to get a loan. For the people who have taken billions, never serve out for anything. They want to borrow for $200 million, $300 million for what? For this? Oh, you know what? This is the time that Ghana, I think we have to wake up now to save this country. Else, these people, they will just take us to the rest of our life and nobody will survive this time. Listen, our water makes who we are have been polluted. We sit down in Ghana here and we're just making everything like, leave everything to God. Like, they say, well, permanent, right? Is that why we're going to live in Ghana and from when? Till when? Well, Ghana will wake up. Have a nice day, Ben, and your host. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mensah, fired up there, and Benjamin.
That is someone who is sounding very much like Elizabeth, who has given up. She says she has no trust in Parliament. She has obviously no trust in the executive. She thinks they themselves are criminals and no trust in the judiciary in resolving this. But do you know what I just picked from what he said? I think maybe when it gets to the point where I think we feel it's far away. It's in the Western region, it's in the Eastern region, it's here, it's there. I feel if it gets to the point where we are importing water and it becomes so expensive that people are hitting the streets and maybe there's chaos, I think maybe that's when we'll sit up and do something about it.
Francis is calling us from Nzima East. Francis, let's hear you.
We need help. People of Nzima, about 3 villages, they are making galamsey and they are destroying our waters. Nvuma 1 is Nvuma Tandan and Asasetere. From Nkrofu to there is about 5 kilometers. Nkrofu.
Thank you, Francis. We will pick up on this and definitely forward it to the appropriate quarters. But
Nkrofu in Zuma. That's actually, Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah, Kwame Nkrumah's hometown.
That is interesting. It just hit me. The Osagyfo's own backyard is now being turned into another, if we are to go by what this person is saying. And that would be sad.
Benjamin, look.
That would be terrible.
I remember so well during the peak of this fight against Galamsey, when we had the president launch the program, the president put his office on the line.
I played that video today and I asked the
For once, I thought that this was going to be something that will give us the results, because I felt there was commitment, there was investment, there was the will, there was the drive.
I'll tell you what, there was the core, the mit and the ment were not there.
Was that just for the cameras? I ask myself, and Benjamin, see, when we talk about these things, I was listening to Mr. Kenashigbe, who is the head of the media coalition against illegal mining. And I've interviewed him before, and we've spoken about this, but yesterday I heard him and Benjamin, look, this is critical. We are having babies born in these mining communities with defects and deformities. And what is wrong with us? Why? What is it? And you see, these things are just, please just permit us to be blunt today, Benjamin. Let me do your job today, okay? I'm sick and tired of people pretending to be working and doing nothing. And I'm asking myself, where is our integrity as a people? If 2-3 people who stood for what is right say, I won't be part of this mess, come out and expose those who are involved. If 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people did that, people will begin to set up. But here's the case, you have somebody, hinting or giving an expose, and the entire thing is being rubbished until people personally petition a body like Sraj to have it investigated. And then you're asking yourself, will we ever have a solution to this problem? Benjamin, you're talking about water. Not only water, we're talking about food, because these things are entering the food that we eat, the food that is coming to you from villages and in rural areas.
Getting polluted.
We're all bringing it to Accra, and we're
the cyanide, the mercury, and all of that.
We're eating all these things.
It's resulting in the increments in the cancer and all of those ailments. Alex, is it from Ablekuma?
Yeah.
Alex, we've kept you on the line. Sometimes it gets so frustrating. Please share your thoughts with us.
Okay, I just have a little contribution to make. Yeah, I think the only solution, the way forward to stop this Galamsey thing is just creating more jobs for the youth. I believe when there's work to do, there will be no need for them to go in for something that they know is a distraction. So I'm just pleading to the government that if he can create more jobs so that the youth have something doing to feed their family, I think that would be the best. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And so, Benjamin,
it's
this
not the
conversation,
full solution, though.
I was just about to say, we respect your opinion, but this conversation has been had over and over again. There are people who are just greedy, who are just selfish.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
No matter the job, because you see, these things are being spearheaded sometimes by big companies, by people who can mine responsibly. So yes, admit it, it's a part of the problem. Many young people, if they had proper jobs that gave them good monies, they won't be in the pits digging and putting themselves at risk. But who are those who are financing these things?
Yeah, and there are those too, even if they had a good paying job. Sometimes they can go there and do this illicitly and earn so much out of it. So they would prefer to do what is illegal and earn more than they would ordinarily earn. Because a lot of these people, sometimes they don't have the academic qualifications and all of that. I'm not saying it's all academics that goes into work, but those are some of the circumstances we have to take stock of. It's a convoluted problem, and Bernice, I'll say this today. If we don't get a handle on this, a time could come when all of us would now be weeping. I've been to a country before where they were actually contemplating importing water, and it was a shame to them because in South America, it was a shame to them because they now had to look at a rival country to get water from. And with the cost of everything now, I mean, look at how much the cost of water has shot up. Our destiny is in our own hands. We determine with what leaders we elect and all of that, what future we should be looking forward to. But right before we go, this was sent through from our sales department. Happy birthday to Dr. Frank Che Arthur. Dr. Frank Che Arthur, lecturer at the University of Environment and Sustainable Development in Somanya. It's from your wife and kids, Samuel and Samuela, and they wish you good health and God's abundant blessings. So, Dr. Frank Che Arthur, lecturer, University of Environment and Sustainable Development, Somanya, a very happy birthday to you, sir. God richly bless you. I wish I could say it was your birthday as well, but you can't celebrate your birthday more than
twice in a year. Right. Okay, so that would be it from us, but please, those responsible for making things work in this country, please wake up. If you claim you are not responsible for the things that are happening, then do something about it, because first you are in power to deal with situations like this. So if you are not involved, fair enough, but solve the problem. Mr. President, and all of you who are responsible, please, we will be feeling the effect, our children and our grandchildren, in a few years to come. Thank you for watching the show. I'm Bernice Abubedu-Lansa.
And those were her blunt thoughts for a Tuesday morning. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Thank you for doing the watch.
Take care. News Desk is up next.